There we go. My symbols say that we're live. I'm waiting to see if it's actually going to come through.
Yeah, it's live.
We're live. Okay. And I have to tell this to be quiet there. I'm not seeing it here, but anyways, welcome to another episode of the Friday Night 3D Printing Community Channel Hangout. And I think I messed that up entirely because I'm looking at the screen and I'm in reverse on here. So it's kind of hard to read this stuff backwards. Anyways, this is the North American version. And tonight we're going to talk about preparing for and doing practical prints. There's more to it than just almost we grab a file off of one of the file sources out there, download it, print it. You don't worry about it too much. If you want to do something practical, you have to consider what it's going to do, what the design's going to be. Once you actually have the design, you have to think about the materials, and then you get around to the actual print and any post work you have to do on it. Anyways, let's get on to the introductions there. Martin, I think you're first.
Yeah, hi. I'm Marteinn. I'm actually connected as a Friday Hangout account as I'm a co-host. But I'm Marteinn. I have a YouTube channel called 3DP Iceland. I do a lot of stuff on my channel, printing all sorts of things, but maybe most recognized by the guy who creates those landscapes. I print out in very high detail landscapes, and then I paint them with acrylic paints. This is a recent one I'm done, and I'm doing several of those, and I've started to do them on a live stream on Sundays, and we'll probably do a live stream on Sunday on my channel 3DP Iceland. I do a lot of film and testing and all kind of projects, a lot of printing around my printer setups, so practical side of things are a lot connected through the hobby itself. But that's me, Marteinn from 3DP Iceland.
Okay, Ricky, you're next. I'm playing with my audio here. I guess it's a little bit fuzzy.
All right. Well, my name is Ricky Tanner. I run Tanner 3D YouTube channel. The majority of the things that I do on the channel is I do design work in Blender, and I just kind of share that with everybody so that they can see my process, my workflow from the perspective of somebody who's not a professional in the industry, and hopefully follow along and learn to do a few things, design things themselves. The majority of the things that I design are 1/18 scale stuff for like G.I. Joe, action figures, that kind of thing. My latest project is this Jeep that I designed in Blender and then have 3D printed it out this week. I've got to iterate the design on the doors a little bit to tighten up the tolerances on them a little bit and reprint those, but all the parts are printed otherwise. And yeah, that's about it, man. I'm excited to be here. This is the first time that I've taken part in this, and so thank you guys for welcoming me into the community and allowing me to join you guys this week.
Glad to have you here, Ricky. Ross.
Hi, I'm Ross from the YouTube channel Geared On For What. I enjoy building robots and 3D printing them. So I've got a lot of stuff that I've 3D printed here that I'll show you guys later when we get to talking about preparing for prints that I didn't prepare for. I don't know if I said this already, but I've got a YouTube channel called Geared On For What, and this cool little gimmick to get people to subscribe. I have this board, which I think is reversed. Oh, no, it's not. And then a robot thing that kind of dances. So that's all I got.
Great. And oh, Geek Tech was here. Oh, no, he's there. Keep seeing an empty chair.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Geek Tech. It's the same everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and everything else, mostly because I'm lazy. I I do a lot of 3D printing, nerdy things. I don't have a fancy gimmicky robot, but if you subscribe, I'll jump up and down and dance for you if you like. That's fine. But yeah, I've got a couple of practical printings. I'm currently wearing one of them, so we'll get to that when we get around to it.
Great stuff. And we'll see others, see if they'll join in. One of our regulars that's quite big on practical printing is Practical Printing, Chris Russell. He may not be able to make it on to the end of the stream if he can get it all. I guess he was 3 hours away from his home for work today. So I was hoping he would get on here. But anyways, let's dive into it. Let's go back to Marteinn there. And what sort of practical prints have you done, and what are the things that have cropped up in the process for you?
Yeah, maybe one of the first thing I did when I got my printer, I printed all the printable parts for my Prusa printer. So I got a roll of ABS and printed all the parts, and that was probably one of the most first practical things. But then lately, after that, I started to print out several things around the house, and one of the things I printed out was a shelf for the refrigerator. I'm sharing the Fusion 360 file because the print itself is in use, but I draw this up to match the shelf for the refrigerator door. So this has been in use for more than a year, and I printed this out in PLA, and has been working great. And things like this, and here's a test rig I did. Here's a recent design I did. This is a fan mount for the CR10 to install 30mm Noctua fan. This is completely my design, this one. And I created a GoPro mount for the Prusa MK3 printer. And this mount was one of the first mounts to be available on Thingiverse for the MK3, and has been a real successful model on Thingiverse. So I'm quite happy with that. And
what's that mount for?
It's for a GoPro to mount on the Prusa MK3. So for the, it goes onto the y-axis. So I mount the GoPro on top here, and this goes to the bed. Then just simple things. This is a simple funnel. I needed a small funnel in the kitchen, and printed this one out. And here's another practical print. This one was part for a car. My neighbor was having trouble with a windshield system in his car. I needed a part, and I printed that out in carbon fiber nylon. It's been working for him. So those are the samples. Most of the practical prints I've done are in use, so I might not have them all, but then things like this spool holder, I have my nylon X in this one. Also a very practical print is this banana. I use it for scale. Then a spool, like a master spool, and several other things. So it's been over the 1.5 years I've been into 3D printing, mostly parts that are just in use at the moment, and a lot of them around the 3D printing hobby. So,
going back to your very first one, the fridge shelf, you said you printed it in PLA. The cold and that hasn't affected it at all. We're normally concerned about the heat in the part. I don't think we've addressed cold and different materials.
Yeah, I recently had a look at it and was wondering if it had sagged or changed shape or anything, and it is holding up pretty nice, and no issues with it. I spray painted it with a clear coat just to fill in the layer lines because it's in the refrigerator, but it's holding up like bottles and mustard and all kind of bottles in the refrigerator shelf, and it has been working quite well, and haven't had any reason to reprint it.
And what are the learning steps that you've gone through when you're trying to actually bring something into the real world?
Yeah, that's for most parts is tolerances that you have to account for, both in printing and also edges of parts are never perfect with a print, so you have to account for that while you're modeling. So bringing something from CAD to real life is not a one-to-one. You have to account for tolerances, and especially if it's a mechanical part of some sorts, you have to account for movement and extra tolerances in those. So, like for this is a test rig I've done. This is like a filament strength test apparatus I've done. Here's quite a number of moving parts that are linked together, and I'm trying to build it as solid as possible with as little tolerances, so I get constant measurements of the filament breaking. That has been a great project to find out exact tolerances of parts.
Great stuff. Rick, what about you? I'm seeing an empty chair again with Ryan. So,
well, I'm still fairly new to the world of 3D printing. I got my first printer in April, so I guess as far as like practical, useful things, and this is going to sound silly because a lot of people are going to say why wouldn't you just fix the drywall? But my son actually pulled down the towel bar in his bathroom, like ripped it off the wall, and it left a perfect circle hole in the wall. So I designed a plug that I could, press fit into the hole that kind of screwed and press fit in, that then I could in turn screw the bracket for the towel bar back into. I don't have it to show you because it's in the bathroom. But yeah, so the towel bar is hanging back up again, and so far it's held. I did tell him, the reason you ripped it out of the wall in the first place was you're not supposed to use that to support yourself as you get out of the tub. It's not that kind of bar.
Yeah.
But it's holding. Aside from that, like I said, all the stuff I'm printing is the toys that I'm designing. But I do have to deal a lot with tolerances, with moving parts and such. The hinge for this door, for instance, is a print in place hinge. It's the door is printed in one piece with the hinge, so there's no assembly there. It's just when you print it out, you pull the supports out, and it's a functional hinge. And I'm sure I will be using design aspects like that in the future in solving some issues around the house and things. I did just this week finally get myself a large format printer, which was actually very graciously donated to me by Robbie Mack. I know a lot of you guys see him in the streams and stuff. He wasn't using his CR10S4, and he sent it to me, knowing that I needed a larger format printer to do some of the things that I was designing. So it's been a game changer. I was able to print all the parts for this Jeep in just 3 days. The truck that I did before that, it took me almost a month to print all the parts, and then I had to try to glue everything together, and it was just an absolute nightmare. And so it's going to make things a lot easier for me. But I've got a lot of things in mind that I want to print. I just haven't had a chance to get around to it yet because I got to sit down and do some design work and that sort of stuff. But that's half the fun of it for me, is sitting down in Blender and using rulers and all that, and making the measurements and making the part.
Sorry, my Skype kicked in during that. But yeah, it's a great learning curve to go through. And when you're doing something complicated like that Jeep, that's a fantastic learning process right there, because you have all those parts to put together.
Yeah, like the wheels, they are mounted on an axle that just clips onto the subframe, and they they spend. So anyway, yeah, it's lots of little things like that. I'm sure Gear Down for What and all that, he's got a lot of moving parts on stuff. So he's much better at that sort of thing than I am.
I couldn't draw up anything like that vehicle that you had there. Like, wow, I was impressed. I'm impressed.
Well, why don't you just head right in there, Ross?
All right, my turn. I haven't got much in the way of practical prints that most people would use, but I do have video equipment. So I wanted to show you guys this teleprompter that I made. I don't know, can you see the text on there? You can a little bit. But if I cover up the light and then I take my video camera and put it in here, you can kind of get the purpose of it. And then I can open up the thing and you can't see the text through the other side of the glass. So this was something that I iterated a couple of times. And originally it had a pocket for a cell phone right in here so that you'd slide your cell phone in and record with the cell phone, because that's how I started recording. But the problem with that is that Apple doesn't make reliable phones, so I ended up having to redesign the whole thing, unfortunately, and buy a real camera. Another practical print that I was going to show you guys is supposed to be a mount for this thing, so that I have a way to hold it like out here and have a handle like right here, and basically talk to it and move the camera around with me when I record videos. And that was when I discovered that I have to be a bit more careful with my 3D printing settings, because this was part of it. This is another part of it. And it's just a bunch of little pieces. I made the mistake of, I made the mistake of printing this out with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle and a 0.4 millimeter layer height. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I just typed the wrong number in. But you could literally shear the layers off on this, like, so easy. It's so bad. But that's all I got to show you guys.
Well, you talked about layer heights and that, especially with your robotics. What about materials?
For the most part, I use PLA because it's so easy. You just hit print and go, and it just works. Every now and then, like for example, for this teleprompter, I actually did use ABS because I want that durability. I want to be able to drop it and not have it shatter or anything like that. Another material that I really like is Nylon X, Matter Hackers Carbon Fiber Nylon Blend. That one's a really good material to print with and a really strong material. Oh, look at that. Got another subscriber. And I like that material, but nylon itself is, can you guys still hear me? Nylon itself is like so hard to get to stick to the print bed, so yeah.
Yeah, we hear you, even though the machine is going.
Folks looking for descriptions on the all our various links. Bear with me. I'm trying to figure it out. We're new to this channel and set up a little bit differently. We had
I put them in. Yeah, I put the link in.
Oh, good. So, great. Thank you. Yeah. Joe Mike, welcome. Introduce yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. I'm Joe Mike. Hi. You want more?
Yeah, a little bit more than that.
Okay. I'm Joe Mike. I've got a YouTube channel, Joe Mike Terranella. On Twitter is Mojike. I do practical printing a lot, so this was a fun stream. I've just been waiting to hop on the stream because I'm in the middle of building a rep box, and I've been hopping back and forth between another video, Pooch's video, and the assembly guide. So, but I think I'm at a place where I can hop on and chat with y'all. So I wanted to. That and Tanner, you know, wearing the KC hat, repping. So, man, gotta also rep. My eyes are open this week. Don't let that fool you. I'm just on a good nap. So I'm on that nap. Yeah, but yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff playing with the palette, multicolor right now. Still got practical prints going on the MK3, and keep it on, keep it on. How are you?
We're having a great time. I just realized I never introduced myself.
Yeah.
I'm Richard Murray. It's my channel is the Zidim channel, Zidim, and easiest way to track down things is go to my website, zidim.com. And my focus is on 3D printing for model trains, although I've been doing a lot more than that and a lot less actual train stuff. But anyways, that's the basics for me. But back to the practical printing, what really got me thinking about this, we actually have seen it in the text. One of the things we're up against, we're on every week, and sometimes we're trying to remember what topics have we covered lately, what are people looking for. But what I've been doing, started this a while back, finally got around to finishing the job. This is a fan from a saw, and ended up doing 2 different styles of printing with it. The base is an FDM print. I did an SLA print of the base. And SLA, I find, just isn't very good for something that you want solid, straight, and large. But on the other end, the fans here, an FDM fan blade is very, very fragile because it's so thin. There's not a lot to it. And this is where the SLA comes together. So it's a matter of merging the 2 materials, finding a way to have it work, dealing with the tolerances in there. Tolerances are a major learning curve of how to work with them. I didn't have to do many iterations with the actual body, but the fan blades themselves, to get them the right shape, the right tolerance to fit into the slots. And once they are fit in, have the right distance. That was a bit of a learning curve. It's one of those projects that starts when someone brings you something like that and says, it broke. Can you make me a new one? And so that's how that project got going. So it's nice being able to combine both SLA and FDM printing in order to solve this particular problem. I've done the same with some other things. I talk a lot about it, the bearings for shredder that my brother has. I've done both FDM prints and SLA prints. And actually, the FDM prints are better for it. And one of the main reasons is you can get some much stronger materials, especially if you get into the carbon fibers. You do a print with the carbon fiber, and you have something that has the strength to survive in some real world machines. The test print I did for that, I gave it to him last fall. A year later, it's still in the machine and running, but he now has a handful of other parts he can use, as some of the other of the bearing holders are starting to fail for him. I used to have a radio station. I did the morning show for the radio station. It was a community station. I was sort of the manager, program manager, and did the morning show. And Brenna, who has been on here, but not for a long time, she did a show, went on once a week on different fantasy music, things like that. But we had wires all over the place. You get cables that build up. And so what she came across, I don't know if she designed it or found it on Thingiverse, was a little shelf bracket. And it goes on underneath the shelf. And then you got a nice hook there that you can hang your headsets off of, or some rolls of cable. Now, this one, I know she went through a couple of them to get it so it would actually fit with the type of shelf brackets we went on. But it's one of those things that it's small, doesn't take long to print, and you're up and running, and you can actually organize your system much better. I'm trying to put these to rest as I'm going to wireless equipment and trying to get rid of the cables. But once again, it's a handy little tool that you put to work, and it didn't take much. And once again, for this, the material didn't really matter because it's light weight material. So we're just using PLAs for it. I think she did a couple with some of the wood filaments and looked nice. So just some of the things that we've done.
Yeah, there's a lot of small things like this one. This part, this goes on ads on the what's it called, the heater that heats up the room. And then my headphones that I'm wearing, they rest on this. And I have this just here beside me. I'll switch camera. So it goes just on the heater here, and it snaps here, and then I can put my headphones and small items like this. This is very common for me to print out just some random parts I need for a small project. And it's a good use case for the printers on a practical side.
Now there's those little things around the house that come into work. Unfortunately, Matt's not on tonight, but because I know he does a lot of printing for work and the stuff. His area is in, I forget which trade it is exactly, but I believe it deals with air ducts, airflow, things like that. So if we can take it over into that direction. But what about the rest of you? Have this been taken into your work world?
Yeah. So in the world of IT, there's a lot of interesting applications for 3D printing that you wouldn't necessarily think. I'm having to keep my voice down. The baby's right there staring at me. Anyway, so I can remember like the most simplest practical print that I printed for my job was a simple 3.5 to 2.5 hard disk adapter, because we were starting to put solid state drives in a bunch of older machines that had the big old hard drives, and the cradles, the caddies for them, were all 3.5 without the ability to mount a 2.5-inch solid state in it. So I just printed out simple little brackets off Thingiverse, and that was my first practical 3D print for IT. From that, it kind of exploded. I had basically the VP of sales approach me about printing out a cable chain that would be able to be mounted to an adjustable height desk, and be able to take the cables with the desk as the desk is raised and lowered, because the company I was working for was a furniture dealer, a commercial furniture dealer. So this was for an executive, and I don't remember the company, but it was for like the CEO of a really big company that was a client of ours. And I was able to print out this gigantic cable chain. I basically took one of the small wire cable chains for 3D printers and scaled it up and printed that out 2 links at a time until I had about 45 links, and then I custom made the mounting points for that. So this guy had a fully 3D printed, customized cable chain for his desk that we sold him. And so those are just 2 examples of the way that it kind of made its way into work. Other than that, it was just printing little adapters here and there, printing cable management here and there, and also printing little clips to put around bundles of Ethernet. They were great. I didn't have to use Velcro anymore. I just printed out these big clips that kind of just went around and clipped into place, and it was great. So it bled over pretty quick. For being IT.
Yeah, there's a lot of I agree. I work IT as well, and I've used it for lots of stuff like that, fixing a lot of random stuff. Especially one of my favorite things to use it for is cable management. But I mean, recently I had to go about fixing a problem. my headset broke, and it's a very comfortable headset. I do really enjoy my headset, and it also cost me way too much money when I bought it, and I am never paying this much for a headset again. But it's the Turtle Beach Elite Pro headset. It's a gaming headset. But the reason I bought it is because the cushions are cooled and they don't smash my glasses into the side of my head. Now, anybody that wears glasses understands that that's very important. But what happened is that the bracket that holds everything together and holds everything up, they broke on both sides. So I had to replace them, and I did this the typical thing that everybody does. This is how they broke. I'm not sure if I can get these very close, but that's what's left of the pieces that came off the headset. That's the original piece that was on there, and it lasted for about a little over a year, and it's been a really nice headset. But I needed to replace them. But the problem is with this stuff is that it's molded. It's not 3D printed. It's injection molded plastic. So it's very hard to replicate this on a 3D printer. So the whole general concept was to try to get as close to this as I could with my Delta, and I couldn't. It wouldn't work. I could not. I could design this piece in Fusion 360. And mind you, I searched everywhere. I checked the website for Turtle Beach and everything to get this replacement part, and they don't even offer it. But I designed the piece in Fusion 360, and I couldn't get it to print out. So I redesigned it to try to get it as functional as possible. This was the first piece I printed out. It's very small. It's got all the holes in the right places, and it's got the hooks in the back, but it didn't fit. The molding on the inside where it connects at wasn't right. It wouldn't connect anything. The screws wouldn't go together or anything. Now, I couldn't get. There's also on the inside of the headset. There's this metal bracket that's got a cushion on top of it, and it's got two little eye holes on each side that hook into this little plastic piece. So if you look real close there towards the bottom, there's these two small holes right there that these are supposed to connect into. And I couldn't push the metal into the plastic without completely destroying the little, I mean, it's just aluminum. So the first piece didn't work. My second try, I just outright got rid of the bottom piece and just left the little knobs there. And that was a lot closer, but I couldn't get the wire to go through, and it wouldn't fit in the bracket, and the bar that goes over the top didn't have enough room to fit in. Now, this took me about 7 or 8 different tries. So luckily enough, these pieces are really small. I was able to print them out in about 15 or 16 minutes, and it's not great quality. I wasn't worried about quality. I was going for more of the fact that I wanted to be able to use my headset again, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't have surround sound for my computer. So when I don't have a headset, I don't have sound at all, and that's just not cool. But I made the pieces and I got them to work. They're not pretty, but that piece right there is what I printed out. Again, you can obviously tell right off the bat that doesn't go there. But it holds it together. It functions. I can use it. It's not breaking again. So, I mean, job done. And I'll probably print out other pieces for it later that are far better quality. But right now, it's going for function. Hey, Chris is here. What's going on, Chris?
Good. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, bud.
Not too much of the echo chamber here.
Gee, it's great to have you on the stream, and I think it is right up your alley.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't make it earlier. It's been a crazy day, and I can't stay too long, but I at least wanted to pop in. So, and I apologize with the lighting in the echo chamber. The house is still under the construction here, so I'm pretty much going off the laptop.
Oh, since you can't hang around long, why don't we just go right over to you? First of all, do your standard intro, and then head into what you have to say about preparing for and doing practical prints.
Okay. Well, I'm Chris Russell. I am practical printing over on YouTube, at Krusty on Twitter, at Krusty Critter on Instagram if I'm ever on there, and any of the other usual stops where you guys pretty much know where to find me. I try to focus mostly on practical printing. That's the name. But I guess I want to emphasize, and this kind of leads right into what you're talking about. Practical prints don't necessarily have to be functional prints. To me, the difference is there's decorative prints or artsy prints, and then there's practical. But there's subcategories within all of that. So like light switches, for example, or light switch covers, outlet covers. It's a very practical print. It's something that you need. It's something, hey, I got a hole in my wall, I need to cover it up. But it's not necessarily a functional piece, as opposed to, like a clamp or something, or a piece for your printer. So I think preparing your prints for that is relative to, does it need to be functional, or is it just a, something decorative and practical, or something you're going to use once and throw away. I've missed most of the stream until now, so I'm not sure what. Yeah, Tony, I'm looking down at you, way down. Sorry, it's awkward height here. Unfortunately, I missed most of the stream, so I wasn't sure what you guys have already discussed or what the.
Well, some of the issues come up. First of all, I guess design considerations when you are given, say, I brought up the example. Someone brought me a broken bit, and what are you going to do to turn that into an actual print that'll be workable and will replace the part they need? Another issue that I'd like to hear your comments on, choice of materials. How big a part does that play for you?
Significant. And I guess going back to what you were saying about somebody bringing that to you and actually taking the time to design it versus printing it, there's always that trade-off. I mean, I can make something versus I should make something. There's always the, I should probably just run to the market and pay the 79 cents and pick it up, versus spending $1 in filament or 3 hours of my time just because I can. It's not like we're making in some cases, it's not like we're making a decorative table or something like that where it's worth investing your time into when you can go down and pick it up for 79 cents. So, I think that for me comes into play a lot, whether I'm going to choose to print something or just buy it or fabricate it or use other materials. And using other materials there, not just your printing materials, but also, what you're going to fabricate apart from. Sometimes plastic isn't the right answer. Sometimes it should be metal. Sometimes it should be wood. Or other materials. Sometimes printed plastic just isn't the right thing for it. Okay, Ron, I'm looking down at you, but I'm not looking down on you. Although Joe Mike is looking up at me, and that's kind of creepy, just with his pause screen there. As far as choice of materials, unless we start getting into some of the exotics, we pretty much have 3 choices: PETG, ABS, or PLA. Again, unless we start getting into nylon or polycarbonate, some of the exotics. All right, now Joe Mike's really looking up at me. There we go. That's yeah, I see what you guys mean.
I don't know why I was frozen, but my image was literally frozen forward.
That was weird. As far as choice of materials, though, I mean, a lot of it plays into, is it something that is going to be used outside in a car? Is it a one-time use piece and you're going to throw it away after that? Does it have to bear a lot of weight? So all of those things need to be taken into consideration. I think 3DP Iceland has been doing some really great tests, and I think Joe Mike's frozen again. Or he's just not moving. No, he blinked. I think 3DP Iceland's been doing a lot of testing with materials to, to do his brake test. And then Joel, 3D printing nerd, did some tests with his shelves a while back, and had some surprising results on, what materials could handle more weight for the shelf brackets. Some of the PLAs were outdoing, nylon and some of the other materials. And so I guess that material research has to play into it as well. But I mean, you have to determine that. I said, does it need to be in a car? If so, you need something like an ABS or a PETG or a CPE or something that can handle the higher temperatures. Is it going to be in a moisture-rich environment? Is it tight-fitting parts in a humid area? So if you have, close-fitting joints or whatever, or really tight tolerances on a part, you might not want to do it in something like PETG because it is hydroscopic, and those parts could swell up, and you might never get them apart again. In the humid environment.
Yeah, since you mentioned the brake tests I've done on this wreck, but I found out quite a interesting variables in strength. Like I did one test with the same PLA from AIO Robotics, and I took their 12-pack. It's a PLA with 12 different colors, and I did a brake test on how color of the PLA affected strength. And it was almost 20% difference in strength from the strongest part to the weakest part based on color. So that was something you might have to think about, not only the material just, but the additives that are put in to create the colors. They affect the material properties as well. So that was quite surprising, really. I didn't expect to get a so high difference in strength based on color.
I don't think I've heard that from anyone about.
Green is very brittle compared to the other colors.
Was that green?
Green.
Green.
And sometimes red. I don't know why.
Blue is usually stretchy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm a little stretchy, so that's cool.
You're purple these days.
I am purple these days.
You lost your blueness.
One of the interesting things that Chris kind of touched on there was, I think, as far as material selection, temperature and UV exposure are two of the biggest factors when I'm trying to pick out something. So if it's going to be in a hot environment, I definitely don't want to use PLA. And I try to even steer away from some, it really depends on how hot the environment's going to be. It's like, is this something where PETG will be fine or ABS will be fine, or do I need to hop up to like a copoly or even go up to like a nylon? So like just dialing it in, knowing what filaments can handle what temperatures, and then all the other factors along with the print. So if it's going outside, for example, it needs to be moisture resistant to a point. It needs to be temperature resistant, and it also needs to be UV resistant. So you kind of have to find the trifecta there, because ABS isn't necessarily UV resistant, whereas it's a little more temperature resistant. And then there's the hydroscopic properties of it, which aren't great. And then you got PETG, which is okay. But then there's a lot of blends and your nylons that really excel well when used in an outdoor setting. So if you're printing out something to use that's going to be exposed to direct sunlight, number one, if you're going to print it in white, definitely print it in something that, in a material that isn't susceptible to high UV exposure, or else it will yellow very quickly. But yeah, so I think there's no right answer because there's so many variables. Does that make sense?
It's perfect sense. And like you mentioned, nylon for outdoor use. Nylon is great because of the UV side and the heat resistance. But if you live in a humid environment and you have something that needs to come apart, or it's like an interlocking piece or something that you need to be able to remove, as soon as it gets wet or the humidity gets up there, you're not getting those parts back apart. Or if you do get them apart, you're not getting them back together.
That's absolutely right. I mean, nylon is hydroscopic like crazy, so it absorbs moisture even if it's not even in a high humid area. So even here in Missouri, compared to like someplace like Florida, Missouri's middle of the road, and even if I put nylon outside, it's going to absorb a nominal amount of moisture, but enough to where that if it was a part that interacted with another part that was made out of nylon, it would also depend on the nylon too. Yeah. But it could swell, and you're right. It could affect performance and affect things further down the line. I think more copolys would be better as far as hydroscopic resistance. If you're in an area like Florida, or on one of the coasts, which we could go into like the coasts and sea salt and all that stuff and keeping up with that, but that's nylon X.
Yeah, I mean the copolys, especially the branded CPEs, have great UV resistance because they have additives in them specifically for UV resistance, and they're still hydroscopic, but they're nowhere near as hydroscopic as nylons.
Very true. I'm reaching down to get a part.
I'm leaning down because I've been standing all day.
Yeah, I'm gonna share the screen a little bit for you. Here I was testing the colors. So light blue and purple and yellow were the strongest one, and pink and dark blue were the weakest one. So it's between those two is like 20%. So it was quite surprising to see how different the color affects the strength on the layer adhesion.
Does Heather know how weak pink is?
No, I haven't had the heart in me to tell her.
What kind of sample size is that for the results that you got?
Yeah, I was printing 10 samples for each color.
Okay, so did you get pretty consistent results throughout for each color?
Yeah, I was getting like 10% range of errors between the samples. I did a run of 100 prints of the same color just to see how accurate the device is. I was getting down to 10% accuracy. So there are some variables in the parts and also in the mechanics of the test unit. It's not a professional test apparatus. So, but I was watching all the numbers and seeing there was a clear difference between the colors, and even though I get 10% error, plus minus 10%, it's still a valid test because of the test samples for each color was 10 pieces.
Okay. Interesting. That was PLA, right?
Yeah, that was AI robotics PLA.
Okay. Be interesting to see if you did the same color from different manufacturers, and then there's so many different ways you could go about it. I guess which way is the best is the good question there.
Yeah, have been testing like print temperature and part cooling fan, how that affects patchy strength, and I've done several runs of tests to test out new stuff.
I'm curious if that what you're seeing is like you saw pink was really weak, which is red and white. So I'm wondering if it's not the color itself so much, but the interaction between the two different pigments, the red and the white pigment. Maybe they, as they add them, they chemically heat up, or you know, or something that changes the way they, I guess the way that they fuse or bond into the filament. I don't know what the word for that would be.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the chemical properties of like how much of a colorant is in a pink filament versus a light blue filament. So maybe the light blue, if the blue filament is very strong color, they only need a small amount of it. So the amount of coloring is maybe less in the light blue. That was the strongest versus a color that has needs more grams of pigment per kilo of pellets. So that might be the thing. Yeah, I think Tinkers is answering the question about pink. Yeah, drops of red, he's saying. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, because the pallets are normally white, so they just add a little bit of red to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just looking for reasons why some pigments, I guess maybe if they're organic pigments versus man-made pigments like indigo blue or stuff, I wonder if that plays into it. But yeah, Keith is the one that knows those things.
Yeah, it's definitely some chemical properties I'm unaware of because I'm not a chemist in any way. So I have no real idea what's happening.
With your strength testing there, Martin, are you noticing a major difference between manufacturers?
I haven't done like a PLA from different manufacturers comparison. So I've just recently built it on. I've done a few tests with PET-G, cooling and print temperature, and now the colors. And those 3 tests are basically the 3 test runs I've done after I got the device working quite well. I was breaking a lot of just normal PLA to try to get a consistent value for the same material, but I'll probably do a comparison of manufacturers since we started to mention it. Try to get the same color for maybe 4 or 5 manufacturers and see how it compares.
No, it's a great project you've taken on there.
Yeah, it's cool project. It's pretty scientific for a like engineer. I'm not an engineer, so but it's great fun, and I'm using Fusion 360 to model the parts, and all the parts in the device have a purpose. So it's a practical use case of 3D printing, doing that device, and it's good fun.
Chris, we've talked about materials. What about actual design? What things have you come across when you're doing the design for parts? Or
I guess the two biggest things would be orientation, or that I see people not consider a lot is orientation of the part. Considering, you know, when you print it, it's going to have layers that build up this way, but that's not necessarily your strongest way to print it. So sometimes rotating your object 45 degrees. Let's see if I can get a camera angle. The lid keeps falling. Rotating your object sometimes 45 degrees on the Z, or even 90 degrees on the Z. So just to change the orientation of your layers, so that, you know, it's kind of like wood. Wood breaks with the grain, but not against it, right? So, and parts tend to have their strength in that same area. even with good layer adhesion, still your weak point is the layer. So it's important to consider that as you're designing pieces if you need them to be strong. The other big one is something that Angus Makersmuse touches on all the time is tolerances. For both your tooling and your machinery, for any screws or nuts or bolts or anything that are going in there, you need to make sure that you're designing for the tolerances of your specific printer and that you know what those are ahead of time. So I know, for example, my Prusa Mark III, I can get away with a 0.4 millimeter tolerance on the inside. The outside perimeter, the tolerance varies a little bit depending on the amount of infill being used and how much it squishes out. So a lot of times I'll run a test print of just the first 10 or 15 layers of something to measure the tolerances and adjust my drawing accordingly. Whereas the CME-CNC, the Rostock Max 3.2, that's tolerances are kind of all over the place right now, and I haven't been able to come up with a compensation pattern for that in the design. But usually once you get it nailed down and narrowed down, your printer is going to be off so much in the X or so much in the Y, and you factor that into your design so that your parts fit together. I think those are the two big things that I see.
Yeah, so know your perimeters. Yeah, Angus at Makersmuse actually just put out a video about 4 or 5 days ago, I think, talking about failed prints and the learning process. And he was going on about it takes him normally about 3 iterations. Get your initial design printed out, check for your tolerances, what have you. Do your next one, everything gets a little bit tighter for that, and then you'll have a final print after that. So you get your 3 iterations on there. But yes, tolerances, once again, I'm not certain where he has his file. This is his tolerance checker.
I believe he's got it on Gumroad.
Okay.
Yeah.
A great little tool to figure out how well your printer's doing and what adjustments you have to do to it. That looks pretty washed out on here. I have to work on the lighting in here.
Yeah, that is a great tool for especially for getting your inside tolerances. It's still just printing yourself like a U shape, say a 20 millimeter tall U shape little box, or 3 rectangles in a U, is really handy because you can measure your X, Y, Z offsets in the directions like you could with a 20 millimeter cube. But you can also measure your inside versus your outside tolerances. So that's really handy as well, because while that test that you just showed is great, it doesn't let you know if it's your inside tolerances or your outside tolerances that are off.
Right.
So you don't know if you're overshooting or undershooting.
Yeah. You just know you're off. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't done it with the new MK3 here, but with the Pio Poly Moe, I know it. I spent quite some time slowly getting it tuned in, get it calibrated, so you're getting accurate in all dimensions. So just setting up your equipment takes a fair amount of time. But once you have it, then you can go forward with whatever equipment you need.
Exactly.
Ross, with your robotics, what things have you come across? How about things like wear? Have you had them running enough that you're seeing wear on parts, or have you?
Yeah, with this, with what I call Richard, I've actually got ball joints in all 8 sections of the arm that kind of like tilt like this. And I've got them full of graphite powder, but they are wearing. And especially where the first one had some support material. There it goes. And especially where the first one had some support material that was kind of in the way of the ball joint working because it was in the socket. You could really tell that it was wearing away at that first ball joint. So I just filled it up full of graphite powder. And I can't handle that. Oh no, now it's gonna start again. So I filled it up full of graphite powder just to prevent it from doing that. And the same thing with another robotics thing I built is it's got just full of graphite powder, or another thing I use is 3-in-1 oil. I've been getting lucky with that. It hasn't been eating the PLA yet, but I have a feeling that it might someday. So I really try to avoid doing things like that. But otherwise, for wear, it's been pretty good. PLA is surprisingly tough when it comes to that. I mean, I've got gear sets that are made with PLA that I've lifted up in like an anvil with, and it spins a lot better after you do that with it. But other than that, it doesn't seem to affect it very much. It's not like the gears are wearing their teeth right off. So that's interesting.
Well, what you just brought up is something I don't think it's been talked about much. Using lubricants with the 3D prints. Any of the people on the panel here, what has your experience been?
Lubricants as far as part on part, or you mean for like seasoning your hot end or running through?
Part on part for the final product.
Ooh, I haven't done much of that. I do use canola oil when I print with some materials like protopasta. I'll drip canola oil on it or wipe it on with a paper towel just to get a little seasoning in there, and it prints much better. I've never had to use it on part. I imagine you want to stay away from petrol-based, like genuine WD-40, not WD-40 oil, but WD-40, WD-40, or anything that's petrol-based, because it's just going to dissolve and gum up.
What I've been using for this robot is silicone. And I'm using this inside the PTFE tubes where there's fishing line running through it. And I just knew that it was going to get all over the rest of the structure of it, and that's all PLA. So I decided it's best to avoid things like you said, WD-40. I was trying to avoid 3-in-1 oil too. But this hasn't reacted with the plastic yet. That's not to say that it won't. I don't know material science very well. And I'm definitely not qualified to say that it won't ever affect it.
What's dangerous? We'll let you go first. You can tell us how it works.
Fresh off the printer. Let's see if I can get that to that swirl. No, it's not the best lighting for it. Yeah. This is something Tom Jackson designed. He posted on Twitter earlier, and I did it in this unreleased filament that's really shiny. It fits the little pooper scooper bags, you know, for like dog mess. And it's just a little tiny trash can that fits those little pooper scooper bags. It's, if you saw it in the light, it's really cool the way it reflects and it rotates.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cool. I was posting in the chat. I know there's a YouTube channel called Tom Stanton. It's a guy in the UK, and he is doing like a compressed air engine. It's like a 2-stroke engine made of PLA, but he uses silicone-based lubricant to lubricate sliding parts with PLA. So he has like a high-speed running engine with PLA lubricated with that silicone-based material.
Yeah, thanks for posting that, Martin.
Awesome. All right, gents, I need to cut off. I've got to get back and feed the animals. So just want to pop in for a little bit, but I will try to jump back in chat after a while, after I get the critters all fed.
Well, thanks for coming in, Chris.
Thanks. We'll see y'all next time.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Bye.
Well, another source is there anything you looked at and decided I could print it, but no, I shouldn't?
Yeah, definitely. I have like small items that you talked about earlier, about things that you can easily get at your nearest grocery store, but you spend 1 hour designing the part and printing it out. It takes 1 hour or two, and in the meantime you could have walked to the grocery store and picked that item up. But I had those items, and sometimes my wife has some requests and talks of if we could go and get something, and I'll tell her I'll rather model it and 3D print it, but time-wise and maybe money-wise, it doesn't make sense, but it's good fun though. So I had those.
Yep. No, there's quite often, the entertainment factor of actually designing it and printing it offsets the maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, here's a sample what I'm talking about. This is just a small hook, and my son needed a hook to get his school bag on the wall in his room, and my wife was going to the IKEA store and telling me she was going to pick up a pack of 10 of those for very little money. But I said, no, I'll make the design and print it. It took 2 hours to print, but she could have made a trip to IKEA and got it for far less effort. I insisted on doing it in a 3D printed fashion. So that's an example of it.
Yeah, we call that justifying the 3D printers to the wife.
Yeah, in my case, the shelf for the refrigerator was a selling point. So I was quite good early on when I got the printer, because that was one of the first projects I did to fix the refrigerators.
Yep. No, I haven't. Well, one area I have to get working on now that I've moved into the suite is more YouTube related, and that's making a new set of camera mounts. So that's an area I haven't even started to design. But now that I'm in here, the camera setups are totally different. Some of the mounts I had worked fine, but I do need some new ones because I got things held together with elastic bands right now.
Yeah, sorry, I have one camera mount I just did. It's just it slides on the stand for the monitors, and then here on top I put my Logitech webcam on top. So this is just a small mount. This is the mounting point, and then the camera is just on top here. And this is just a simple mount design, but things like that and parts around the YouTube thing is it's quite common for me to print to get a more simple setup and more easy setup, cable management and such things.
Now we're taking the time to organize all the stuff around 3D printing that we got to help organize stuff.
Yeah, it's like self-serving projects, so to speak.
Well, not dealing with practical printing. I ran into an interesting lesson the other day. I built this MK3 and had it hooked in to update the firmware. And I was printing away and wanted to get a print ready for the Moya, and fired up Cura. As soon as Cura fired up, my print stopped because I still had everything hooked in. I had to disconnect the MK3 from the computer so I could continue on doing the setup. So the annoyance of having a failed print right in the middle.
Yeah, it's the most annoying failures when you do something like that and disconnect the printer while it's printing. Not human error is the worst.
Well, just looking in the back there, one of the things that I do have, and if you'll notice in the background of most folks, I don't see one on Marteinn shot right now. We have the maker boxes. in there, and what I consider a practical print. Found this on Thingiverse, and it's a handy little spool. Comes apart, and of course I can't get it to come apart right now. It did just screw together, and that's just for doing the filaments samples that come in through the maker box. That's the big thing, is you end up with all these samples, and you want to use them, and if you're just using the straight coil filament, it's a bit of a pain.
Yeah, I use a master spool print that I did for the MakerBox samples. It's really convenient to throw in the samples on a spool like this. I'm always doing the MakerBox videos, so I use those spools a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I got company in here, another cat.
Yeah.
But okay, well, we're sort of pumping this topic dry. What about other things folks want to get into?
Yeah, I have this print. This is my newest practical print, though. It's still a practical print. It's a banana for scale. I made this as a joke because Joel, the 3D printing nerd, he was doing a project. I think it was the shelf, the filament shelf holders, and he had some measurements in inches or pounds, or when he was doing the brake tests, and he got a lot of comments on that video that since he didn't do it in kilograms, just in pounds, the strength test, it was not scientific. So so I was joking with him on Twitter that he needed to have a more scientific way of measuring than inches. So I created a banana for scale, so you could use a banana to measure out things, and both in weight, it has a weight to it, and also in length. So that's a fun little project I did the other day.
I was wondering why you had a banana there.
Yeah, it's purely scientific.
Oh, great stuff.
Yeah,
we haven't heard much from Ricky lately. Beyond your Jeep, what other types of things are you doing?
Oh man, I've got a whole bunch of mostly vehicles in the works. The first thing that I tried printing was a military truck that I had designed, and it's on Thingiverse. I'm Tanner Designs on Thingiverse, and Roy Holly, you see him sometimes in the chat. He actually successfully printed the truck before I did, but because I was trying to print everything on my Tronxy X1, and that's why it took me like a month. And things that were supposed to be printed in one piece, I was having to slice into like 6 pieces and then trying to line them all up. And of course, there was a little bit of warping on each part. And by the time you try to line them all up and glue them together, and then you end up having to sand and fill forever. So it took me forever to get it printed. And I started finally getting it put together. My grandson came to visit, and I forgot to put the truck up somewhere where he couldn't get to it. And he's 4. He got a hold of it, and it took him all of 30 seconds to undo a month worth of work. So 30 seconds of nobody watching him, and the truck was like as solid as the tires are on the truck. They're just as solid as these are. He managed to somehow break the tire into like 4 pieces. I'm like, how did you? I don't get it. But so yeah, I forgot to put it up, so it got destroyed. So I was kind of disheartened and didn't want to start over on that. So that's why when I got the large format machine this week, I started printing my Jeep. But I've got the first vehicle that I shared on Thingiverse was a step van, like a bread truck, UPS truck kind of deal. And I haven't printed that yet, so that's on my to-do list. A bus that I designed is on my to-do list. And then I've got a bunch of other stuff that's in the works. Armored personnel carrier, a jet, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's all, you know, G.I. Joe scaled, and it's all original designs that, you know, may be inspired by other people's designs or other things that I've seen, but none of it is copying anything directly.
Well, the one thing you just brought up there is one area we haven't talked about. We talked about looking, you know, at the materials and the design based around heat and humidity. We didn't mention too much about use. Give it to a 4-year-old and see how long it'll survive.
Yeah, about 30 seconds. But that's, my grandson likes to break things. That's what he likes to do. Like, he's into Skylanders, and none of his Skylanders have all their arms, legs, and heads attached.
Yep, seen the destructive kids, but yeah. So it's just like evil plans, give it to a 4-year-old. They can figure it out, then you got problems.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, are there design things that you think you can put into that to make it a little bit stronger?
You know, there's some stuff that I have in mind, but like I said, he managed to break a tire into like 4 pieces. I mean, I don't know how he did it, because I can't break this thing. Yeah, if it can be broken, he'll figure out how to break it.
How to do it. Yeah. Now, for all your design work, what are you using for software?
Blender.
Oh, okay.
And Blender is awesome because it is open source. It's open source. It's free to download. The learning curve on it isn't that bad if you've ever used any, you know, 3D modeling software, you know, like 3D Studio Max or Maya or any of that. You can pick up on it pretty easy. And I've got a few videos out there on my channel. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning, I do a morning modeling and hangout stream for a couple hours in the morning, from 8 o'clock Central to 10 o'clock Central, where I just sit down in Blender and play around with stuff. But a couple of those I decided to take kind of a tutorial approach to, and one of them is learning the basics of Blender. So I just literally sat down with the beginning cube that starts on the screen and showed people how to extrude and manipulate vertices and ring cuts and things like that, so that they could, you know, see. I was like, this is all the moves that are necessary to do the kind of things that I'm doing. So if you learn how to do these moves and you master those, anybody can make anything. And beyond that, it's just vision, because here's the process. Here's how it works. All you need now is the vision. And if you can't do it in your head like I do, because I sketch nothing out in advance, I just sit down and start modeling. But if you can't do that, sit down and draw it out on paper first, and then start with your cube and start extruding, and, you know, or cube or a sphere or whatever your particular model needs, and just start, you know, extruding faces and manipulating vertices until you get the shape that you want.
Oh, great stuff. Now we got a 4-year-old there. Joe Mike, if you're around. Yep, okay, he's alive. Any plans on incorporating 3D printing with your new family?
Oh,
We had Matt talk about doing some changes to a baby gate.
yeah, that's part of it. Pretty much, you know, when you first have a kid, you go to like the baby store. So like in our case, Bye Bye Baby, and then you realize that there's a baby tax. So just like marriage and just like death and just like everything else where they got you by the cojones, they inflate the prices ridiculous because you have to buy it. That includes all the little plastic pieces for like baby proofing, toddler proofing your home. So the other day I was walking through Bye Bye Baby to buy some more diapers, which I wish I could 3D print, but I got the nicks from the wife on that one. I was going to do them out of TPU and they were going to be reusable. It was going to be great, but no. So I started looking at all these latches and light switch covers and outlet covers and all this other stuff. And I was like, I can 3D print all of this stuff for pennies on the dollar to what they're wanting for them. And so when we get around to the point where she's actually moving around, I'm going to start chugging production up on designing and printing hooks for the cabinet doors and things for like the thing that goes over the doorknob that prevents them from turning it, but only like an adult has to reach through the holes and then turn it. Print those out and print out socket covers, just the little basic socket covers, and then also print out the larger ones that allow you to keep stuff plugged in, but also cover the entire outlet. So I've been kind of forecasting the things that I will need to start printing when she starts getting more mobile. As of right now, it's just been decorative. So little cactuses here and there, little other models that match her nursery and are pretty. And as soon as she starts crawling and walking, it's going to be practical out the wazoo.
Yeah, Joe, it's funny as a parent, because like I said, my kids are 26, 21, and 13. You spend the first like 2 years of their life, excited and can't wait for them to walk and talk, and you spend the rest of their life telling them to sit down and shut up.
I could definitely wait for her to not walk. She's just out like a light right now, getting rocked to sleep in a mamaroo, and I'm just like, that is perfect. If only I could get the dog to do that.
And it seems like my kids, they never did it. They didn't learn to walk first. They learned to run full speed. It started there.
As soon as they realize how the feet work in conjunction with the legs.
But luckily for me, my parenthood all started at a very young age, so I still had energy to keep up with it. I couldn't imagine trying to do it now. A lot of guys I went to high school with and stuff are just now getting started on their families. I'm like, no. I was like, I'm 5 years away from an empty nest.
I was one of the waiters. Like I waited until I'll be 35 in this month, and so I have friends who have 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, and even some who have older kids. And here I am with my 1-month-old. So I was 20 years old when I got sole custody of my daughter, and then I was a single father for 3 years before I met my wife, and then she had sole custody of her daughter. And at the time that we met, her daughter was 8. I've been dad to her since she was 8 years old. She's 26 now. She's the one that made me a grandpa. Nice. So I mean, even though I'm not, she's not my kid by blood, she tells everybody that I'm her dad. That's her exact words were, your dad is the one that puts the Band-Aids on your knees when you fall down and skin them, and is there to dry your tears the first time a boy breaks your heart, and teaches you to drive and teaches you to be an adult in this world. And so, yeah, I'm her dad.
Yeah. We got a new person on here.
Yes, Tim's in the house.
Hey. We've been running around like crazy here today. As you can see, we still got 2 guys here doing work. And I looked at my clock. I was like, oh, I thought there was a Friday night hangout. And I saw you guys were still going, so I figured I'd pop in. And you guys were talking about kids. And
at least
unless cats count.
I thought yesterday was Friday. That's how mixed up my days.
I know what date is by what vitamin compartment is next to take. Because otherwise, I have no idea. It all blurs together.
I should probably take that.
See, I haven't done the sleepless kid thing in a while. My daughter's 12, but my wife is currently pregnant, so we're expecting. And I'm 34 now. I was 21 when my daughter was born. Well, 22 when my daughter was born, and. So yeah, I think this time's going to be a lot harder than it was the first time, because I was very young when I started off, and now, I mean, I creak when I get out of bed.
I'm only 29, and every time I get up, my wife makes fun of me because she's like, "You sound like an old man getting out of your chair."
That's when they can get you up.
Well, I mean, we hope our plan is to get a house in the next year. Well, less than a year. We're out of space here. Like I've got 5 printers that I have no idea where I'm putting them. So we need more room. We're running out. But we want to have kids in addition to expanding stuff for our 3D printing venture. So because I want to start having them when, no later than 31. I don't want to be old and can't keep up with them at all,
Wait, you saying older than 31 is old?
I'm saying I want to be able to retire and have them, gone and on their own before I'm like, I don't know, in my 70s. Like,
That's
I
cute.
know.
You're good.
I'll just be like, get out of here, 21. You've had enough time.
They're never on their own.
Ugh.
They're never on their own. My 26-year-old needs more from us than my 13-year-old does.
Well, we just cleaned out my mother's house. And the person that had the most stuff in there was my oldest sister. And my oldest sister is in her late 60s. So, 21 isn't an age range. But yeah, listen to all you guys. I feel like I need to go get my walker and tell people to get off my lawn. Tim, tell us where we can find you.
Oh, so those of you guys that don't know me, I have my maker side, which is what I started as, but I also run a company called TH3D Studios. So we do like upgrade parts, accessories, custom machines, support, that kind of stuff. So, and we also have a YouTube channel for tutorials. You can go to youtube.th3dstudio.com. And th3dstudio.com is our site where we sell all sorts of fun things. And there's also a lot of free stuff on there, like firmware for, I think we support over 20 models now, mostly Chinese machines. We do have a Lulzbot Taz 5 on there because those didn't have bed leveling. So we have a few customers that had those and like, hey, can we put your stuff on there? I was like, yeah, sure, we'll work with you. And we got it supported.
Great.
So, yeah, I'm all over the place. I've got 25 printers right now. Like I said, I don't know where I'm putting those extra 5. I have a CRX in the box in my living room that came today, a CR20, an AlphaWise U10, Anycubic i3 Mega, and then I got i3 Plus sitting a part of my floor that I'm currently doing development work on.
Didn't you also develop an auto bed leveling kit for the CR10?
Yeah, that was kind of our claim to fame. Actually, this year is our 1-year anniversary for the actual brand. I've been selling them for longer than that. I had them on just because I'm an IT guy. That's my background.
Welcome to the fold.
I actually just gave my notice to my last client that I have that I'm ending their contract and no longer dealing with them.
So are you an IT contractor then? Are you 1099?
For them, yes. But TH3D is the main focus right now. My wife and I, and we have 4 full-time employees and like 6 part-time people right now for TH3D.
You lucky dog.
Oh yeah, living the dream. 70 hours a week plus is great.
70.
Nice to only work 70 hours in a week.
That's on the low end. I'm up till my wife gives me crap because she's like, "Oh, Tim will be up around 10 or 11." But what she doesn't tell them is Tim was up until 4 or 5 in the morning, working on things and talking to some of our suppliers, and it's a lot. My sleep schedule is all screwed up.
Reminds me that I have to reboot a server tonight.
Oh, I I know that pain. Does it at least have like ILO or DRAC or something in case it doesn't reboot?
It's got an iDRAC, but it's also an old 2013 Exchange server. So
oh my god!
Fingers crossed.
Oh, check the disk space and the logs before you restart that sucker.
Oh, it's fine. It just stopped taking mail today.
I moved all my clients off to Office 365, and
that's what we're trying to do. Except we have a handful who just refuse to pay for 365.
We did. I migrated the client that I just gave the notice to. I'm actually handing them off to a friend of mine. They're just going to hire him internally. But we did. They had 120 mailboxes. I migrated them with Skykick, so which was worth every penny. I think it was like $20 per user. I basically told them, "We're going with this. Here's the bill," and they're on it. But they were on Exchange 2010. So I was like, okay, we either need to, make a decision on you guys going to the latest exchange and paying a ton of licensing, or we just say screw it and go to 365 and be done with it.
We still have clients on 2010, and Windows released an update not too long ago that broke Exchange 2000.
Oh my gosh!
So that was a fun day at the office. Anyway, I think we're getting off topic.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we are. That wasn't my fault.
That was totally my fault.
Well, Tim, just to do an overview of what we've been dealing with, practical prints. You live this world, but if you're coming up with a practical print job, I talked about the fan blade here, then building away in that. What are the things that come to mind if you have a project that you have to put together? What are your concerns that before you actually start the design process? What comes in during the design, and then what goes into the material selection?
Well, one of the things that I think one of the guys from Printed Solid actually had a talk at IRF about this is taking into consideration, where your stress points are going to be on those prints. Like if you've got force being applied from one direction, is this going to be on the layer lines? Because it's going to be significantly weaker along those. And then part selection usually depends on, okay, is it going inside, outside? What kind of temperatures is it going to be exposed to? Me personally, I print a lot of PLA and a lot of ABS. I've kind of gotten away from PETG because now that I have 3 machines that are fully enclosed, ABS is a lot easier to print than PETG, especially in terms of controlling the string. Because PETG, if anyone's printing with it, you guys know it strings a lot, and it takes a lot to get a good PETG profile. ABS is a really nice material. I know some people don't like it. I like working with it, but you have to have the proper equipment to print it. We do a lot of, I find myself just kind of printing random things. And of course, right now it escapes me outside of 3D printer parts in terms of practical stuff. I know I've printed a bunch of little mounts and whatnot for like our Amazon Echoes. Make sure not to say the trigger word there. You might have a bunch of people that would be like, you turned it on. But I've definitely, like in our kitchen, we had Echo Dot, which I've got the show now. But when we had the Echo Dot, I actually designed a little mount that it sat in, and then I bolted it to the bottom of the cabinet. But what I like about the machines and what originally intrigued me to them and why I bought a 3D printer was because the idea of, I need to fix something now and I might not be able to find this part or get in a quick amount of time, is I can sit down and model it and I can have it in a couple hours. And if there's something out of spec, I can instantly change it and print another one. And it's very inexpensive, so that's the power of these machines. Yeah, we can print trinkets and stuff, but I do like using them for prototyping. I use them a lot for, we actually use printed parts for some of the products we sell. We looked at doing injection molding, but again, the nice thing is if I want to change something on my design, if I was doing injection molding, I'd have to go get a new mold made, which is very costly, and then, change everything up. Whereas with 3D printer, we can just change the G code we're running and we have our modified part. So I'm trying to think of what stuff I have around the house. Because if I were to walk around my house, there's a ton of stuff that's 3D printed that I just forgot is 3D printed because it's just there and it's doing its job. Hopefully I answered the question, didn't go too far off tangent there.
No, that's pretty good. I'm staring at your spray can there of WD-40. Now,
where is that?
No, other shoulder.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stuff around here. I kind of went through let's empty out all the junk drawers in here and go through them, which was 5 drawers in total. So everything's kind of just everywhere right now. And our full-time guy just got back today. So I had been doing the work of 2 people on top of everything else. So it's been kind of chaotic around here.
I'm just wondering, with all your parts and that, have you come across issues lubricating printed part on printed part?
Lubricating? What do you mean by lubricating?
We're looking.
Oh, like actual interfacing, like you have something that actually turns. Because I had the only thing I really had with that is I did have some spool holders that I use that have a printed thread on them, and I've used anything from white lithium grease. It seems to work fine. It doesn't seem to affect the PLA at all because that's what I printed them in, and it made everything very smooth. I also found that just doing a general cleanup of the part will help make any sort of parts that move a lot smoother. Silicone lubricants. I have a can of WD-40 silicone lubricant because WD-40 is not a lubricant, just so everybody knows. And that works really well with the printed parts, and it seems to hold up a long time too. So I haven't made anything in a while that actually has a motor or something that moves on it, but I have done a lot of stuff with threads. And typically it's, threaded on and off a couple times. That'll usually make it move smoother. And then if it needs a little extra lubrication, I just happen to have that WD-40 silicone lubricant. And it works really well. And I didn't notice any issues with it breaking down the part, especially long term, because I have some of those spool holders I've had for over a year now that are still working just fine. They're still very smooth.
Another question for you with all the printing that you're doing. Have you noticed wear problems on printed parts?
The stuff I print doesn't really have too much wear, and where it would be in contact with something. I mean, I've got a lot of machines here that have printed parts that are in contact with like bearings and rollers that like belts are moving on, and I do mechanical checks. And I've got a AM8 project is one of my main machines. It's got thousands of hours on it. And its original ABS parts are still on there that I printed over a year and a half ago. And there's no signs of them degrading or cracking or showing any sort of stress. So, but I took into account when I printed those parts where the stress would be. So that way it's not, pulling apart the layers. It's putting the pressure on across them. So it's not going to want to, separate that part.
And one more question for you, and that is for your design work, what software are you using?
So you're going to laugh. I tinker around a lot. I'm most comfortable with Mesh Mixer, which is terrible. But it's what I fumbled myself through, and it's kind of like you get yourself into a habit of learning, how to use the software. And I've been forcing myself to use Fusion 360 a lot more. And it's just a matter of me getting more comfortable with it because Fusion is amazing. I don't know what you guys are tinkering around with, but Fusion 360 is awesome. And if you're a business that's under a certain threshold, I think it's like 100,000 a year. I don't know if that's like sales or revenue or something. You can use it for free, but they have hobbyist license, educator licenses. So you can actually legally get it for free. I've just been playing around with it casually. And I really like it. My brother, Doug, actually, we have him on our team, and he does a lot of the 3D design because I don't always have time to sit down and make it work, and I can send him a drawing and he'll model it up real quick and send it to me. So, and he's been playing around with Fusion, and I can't remember the other. He uses Fusion and something else. I don't know if it's 3ds Max that he's using or SolidWorks. I think it's 3ds Max because he has background in like 3D level design, and 3ds Max can export as STLs. It's not the most efficient program to do it, but he's very comfortable with it, so he can whip things up very fast. So, but Fusion 360 is on my chopping block of things to learn because that's my weak spot is that 3D design. I can kind of hobble my way through it and get what I need to get done. But then I sent a file I made to my brother, and he's like, this has too many triangles. He's like, this is terrible. I was like, yeah, well, it slices and it prints. So
I believe the agreement with Fusion 360 is revenue over 100,000 is when you have to get licensed.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, finish. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was saying I got to check that because I don't know if that's how it worked with me. If that's like based on like what our my salary is from our company, or if it's I don't know how it worked because if I'm like doing it for like tutorials and educational use, I don't know if we would have to I would have to purchase it or not. But it's not that expensive a month either way. So,
I believe it implies that you're using it to make over a certain amount of money.
Well, it really depends if your ad revenue feeds back into your general revenue for the business, and your general revenue for the business exceeds $100,000 a year, then you have to buy a license for it.
Okay.
And believe me, Autodesk will find a way to justify.
Yeah, because my thing is I'd like to do tutorials, because right now I'm just playing around with it, and I'd like to do tutorials, but it's like, okay, my YouTube channel is, any of you guys with YouTube channels, you know, they don't pay anything. You know, it's
break it out into its own separate entity.
That's a good idea. I thought about doing that too, because it's kind of like all my stuff is mostly 3D printer related, but it'd be nice to have like an educational section, you know what I mean? Because I do enjoy, my goal is, so like we just hired a guy just to handle support, and my goal is so I can get back to doing development and tinkering, and I want to do more just, you know, free content and educational stuff, because there's a lot I have in my head and I share it with people, but it's hard to document it all. It'd be nice to be able to just have like a channel where it's just videos, like here's tips for using your all metal hot end, or, you know, here's what to know when you're printing with large diameter nozzles, that kind of stuff. Like just little quick videos, just showing little tips and tricks that are things that I just kind of do naturally now, but I wish somebody would have told me when I started out to make my life easier. And the thing is, there's just like everything, there's a lot of information out there. The problem is trying to find it and find the right information.
That's the truest statement ever, really.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the last 3D printing, about, you know, how, like, you know, all these communities are great, but, you know, especially like it seems like the Facebook groups and stuff, they just kind of you get like 30 answers to the same problem, and only one of them is the actual solution to the problem, and the other ones are just sending you down a rabbit hole of troubleshooting that is just going to either break things further or just waste your time.
Well, that's because it worked for me this one time with this one printer, and
I made a post the other day in the CR10 group with a physical level on my bed. I was like, hey guys, I can't figure out how to live in my bed. And people knew it was me, and they're like, oh, he's just screwing around, so they're screwing around again. But some guys like put some tape on her, so I took a whole roll of tape and I put it underneath the bed. I was like, it's still not level.
Did you put a bubble level on the bed and be like, I can't get this thing level to print?
Yeah,
right?
I had a level on there, and some guys like, oh, it's probably that terrible leveling sense you got. Just throw it out. I hear that company's terrible. But it was all good fun. But there were people that I think were actually replying with serious replies, and I was like, I think they're not catching on to the you know, joking seriousness of it. You know, it was completely just for fun.
Trolling.
One of the challenges I've come across is I haven't got any package that does everything I want. So for Fusion 360 is my core unit, but then I have 4 different other packages I'll pop into to do things. And, you know, package A works one way for movement, package B works another way. And it always takes a few moments to figure out, okay, how can I even just move this object before I proceed?
I know. I jumped in the first time I jumped into Fusion. I was like, I just want to make this one part. It was a very simple part. I just need to make it a couple millimeters wider. I'm sitting there for like an hour going on YouTube, watching videos, and I finally found the right tutorial. I was like, oh, okay, there we go. It's done. Like, it's just navigating the software and knowing where everything's at. It's like it's like you took a step in, you know, be like, if I came over to your house and like I'm working on a printer and I need to use your toolbox, I have no idea where everything's at, you know?
Well, it's also the jumping from software to software. It gets a little confusing as to what like the hotkeys are and what the mouse buttons do, because you hop from like Fusion 360 to SketchUp, or even from like a modeling software into a slicer. Your right mouse button.
Oh my God, yeah.
Middle mouse button. The wheel does something completely different. And like you're sitting there trying to figure out, it's like, do I have to hit shift? Do I have to hit control to do the pan? How's this one work?
Yep, exactly. You spend a lot of time going, okay, I just want to move around. The one I find the biggest leap is getting into ZBrush, because if you're used to working in 3D packages, I find it's in a different headspace, and that's my biggest challenge. But there are things with organic modeling that the best way to do it, I find, is in ZBrush. So you have to make that leap, but it's just a challenge to do it.
For them creative types.
Yeah. One thing,
Yeah.
because ZBrush is like a licensed software. I played a little bit around in a program called Sculptris. It's the same vendor as makes ZBrush, but that is a free package with a limited function set. But it's a good tool to see if you want to pursue this method of modeling. So if you want to learn it, and if you feel pretty awkward doing it, or if it feels natural to you. So Sculptris is a program I would recommend to try out organic modeling.
Mesh operates along the same lines too, just not quite as organic as ZBrush, but it's still a lot more organic than it is CAD.
Which one?
Mesh Mixer.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, Mesh Mixer is kind of a weird.
It's a hype.
Yeah, and the thing is too. So I had reformatted my computer, and I was like, okay, I'm going to reinstall Mesh Mixer. I download the new version, and the new version is just they changed a ton of stuff, and I'm like, okay, this kind of feels foreign, and I haven't looked into the issue, but sometimes like when I'm moving around, I'll just get a black screen. It's like the hardware acceleration isn't working correctly or something. So, but it's like if I just need to cobble out something and just get it to print, I'll usually use Mesh Mixer. Is that a Wi-Fi outlet there, Mike or Joe?
What? Where?
Is that a Wi-Fi outlet up in the corner, like of your shot there?
There?
Yeah.
Yeah, it controls this overhead light.
Sorry, I was like, oh, that looks like a smart Wi-Fi switch.
It's a TP Smart Link. They're literally
Those are the same ones I have.
all over. Yeah.
There's a stack of them right there. I use them. I'm actually using them in conjunction with Octoprint to turn my printers on and off. I was making solid state relay boxes, like a printed box, put an SSR in there, and put it to the GPIO pins. But when I can get these for $15 a piece, I just get these and be done with it.
Yeah. No, I was using Wemo for a while, and then the TP-Link plugin came out, and I was like, buy Wemo. So now Wemo's in the rest of the house, and everything down here is controlled by TP-Link. And I just recently got some power strips that each outlet on the power strip is.
Yeah, I saw those.
Click on and off. So I've been using those for like the lights for the printers and even Octoprint. So like the Pi power supplies are now going into that power strip. So if I need to cycle the power on the Pi, I can do that remotely. And so I've gone to those instead of the TP links now. I just need to figure out an API for those.
Yeah, the TP link, there's literally a plugin. I static assign my TP links and my routers DHCP. So obviously they don't change. And then, yeah, it took me all 5 minutes to add the static mapping, put the IP address into the plugin, and boom, I was like, well, that was too easy.
Yep, that TP link power control plugin was nice. I'm tired.
The joy of automated control.
Do what?
The joy of automated control of your house.
Yeah, but it can get out of hand real quick. When I looked at, I hop on my Nighthawk and look at all the connected devices when I connect a new device to it. For example, I was setting up a new Raspberry Pi to control Motion OS, Motion Eye, for a camera system to put around the palette so I can monitor every single nook and cranny of that thing while it's printing. But when I got onto my router and took a look at the connected devices, there were over 60 devices connected to my poor little consumer router.
Yeah.
It's a higher end Netgear Nighthawk. That's nice and all, but still, I mean,
it'll be fine. I mean, yeah. I have two Unify access points here with separate VLANs for my smart home stuff and for my IP cameras and then the general use. But I'm also running a managed switches and PFSense router for all that stuff.
It might need a class B network. I don't know. I'm getting ready to subnet 255.255.0.0 now.
Oh, speaking of access points and practical prints, one of my clients, for some reason they during the move, the access point backplate got lost, so I modeled one up in a mesh mixer of all things, and printed it. And I was like, hey, I'll have a mount for this in a couple hours and come and mount it to the ceiling.
Yeah, I mounted my Unify access point, which is because I had an older Netgear, and a ton of my home network, not home automation stuff. So a lot of the smart Internet of Things devices in my house were linked to the 2 SSIDs I was using on that router. And then this new one had 3, and I was like, I'd be stupid if I didn't go with Spaceballs and go light speed, ridiculous speed, and ludicrous speed. So, like, I was like, so I need to figure out a way to keep Bacon Highway up, because I had Bacon Highway and Bacon Expressway. So I decided that I would get a Unify AP and then give the Unify those 2 SSIDs, and then it can handle all the old legacy network devices. So yeah, that I actually printed a mounting bracket to get it to the ceiling because it was a bracket that I'd lost.
Yeah, everyone seems to lose. I mean, that's what appealed to 3D printing, because I've always messed around with electronics. I've always messed around with electronics, and the original intention for buying a 3D printer, which my first printer was the Fired Hazard that ANET put out, the A8, and my intention was, hey, I've got all these Arduino projects that are like, I would take, like, the Chinese takeout containers, those plastic containers, I'd wash them out and cut holes in them and mount the electronics in there. And my first print was an enclosure for the Uno and the Ethernet module to put my Arduino Uno powered garage door opener, because we're in a condo, and I figured out that if I, hook up the transmitter, I can actually, even though I'm on the 3rd floor, I can actually open the garage door from up here in my condo as long as I'm pushing a full 12 volts through the transmitter. And so I have a relay turn on for a brief second, turn off. And so it's nice because when I'm on my motorcycle, I can just, pull, because I got a mount for my phone on there. I can just hit a button, it connects to the VPN, sends a packet to the Uno, it opens the garage door, and I can roll right in. So I don't need to have a garage door opener on me.
That's a new level of nerd.
I know.
It's not like we can just hop down to Radio Shack anymore and buy a project box, but even if we could, I still wouldn't, because I'm not paying freaking $7 for a project box that I can print for 50 cents.
Yeah.
Especially one that I can print for 50 cents and design specifically with mounting points for the board.
Exactly. I should have bought a printer probably about 5 years ago when I was making, I actually had a e-juice company and a vape company that we did accessories for, and I still use the box that I had made. I was, at one point before I moved to the metal boxes, I was getting Hammond project boxes and drilling them out and taking like a jeweler's saw and cutting out all the openings. And now I look back on that and go, man, if I would have just bought a 3D printer, I could have made them look nicer and just print them instead of having to sit here for hours making these boxes look pretty. There's so many applications with the 3D printers. It's like sometimes you sit down and you're like, I'm going to print something. Like I got one printer here that's just dedicated to fun stuff because it's got a big nozzle. And I actually just got 2 E3D, their new Volcano copper plated nozzles,
Yes.
which they were freaking expensive. So I hope they work better than the cheap brass one I have in there.
Well, I've got the copper plated nozzle and the copper plated heat block with a titanium heat break running on one of my Prussias, and I'll tell you what, you can get those suckers hot.
Yeah, I've got a 50-watt heater cartridge in that. I do have titanium heat break in there, and this just showed up today as a sample from one of my suppliers. I got to ask her what this is, but it's a gold-colored Volcano block. I don't even know who made it or what, or if it's copper. It feels heavier than the aluminum ones, so that'd be crazy if this is copper, but I don't know what it is. It's got a weird color to it, but they always like to send me new products in my shipments, and they're like, here, try these out, and I'm like, okay, I'll check them out. But yeah, I'm really excited about those because Dave over at Printed Sod, I was messaging him, he's like, well, we don't carry them right now. He's like, but I can get them. I was like, order them, I want to try them. So I'm going to do some test prints with just the cheap nozzle I have in there, and I'm going to switch it out for these nice Volcanoes. and just do a comparison to see, because I really hope I can get just even a little better prints, because like this is what I'm getting now with just a cheap 0.8 nozzle. It's good, it works, but I want to see if it can work better, and see if these things live up to the hype. So I have a feeling they will. I'm very excited to start trying that.
How are you finding yours, Joe Mike?
What?
You said you're using those nozzles already, copper
Yeah.
plate. How do you like it?
Well, it's nickel plated copper, so
Right.
the block itself is made out of copper, or the nozzle. I've got the block and the nozzle, and then they plate it in nickel, which actually helps keep filament off of it.
It also helps with wear properties like abrasion.
Yeah, and it's also incredibly beautiful because they etched the E3D logo on the block, which is just nice and shiny and beautiful. Overall performance, it maintains temperature incredibly stably. Like, you'll notice you'll have to rerun your PI. Well, this is with the block. I don't know about just the nozzle, but with
I'm just doing just the nozzle. See, here we go. Got my little printed solid stickers there, but there they are, 2.8s. I was like, if you're gonna order one, just order two, so I have a spare. So
I just slapped a 0.8 on my console just to screw around.
Yeah, that's what this printer is. I call it Bertha. It's an AlphaWise U10. Actually, let me see if I can pull a picture. Have you guys heard of the Petz Fang mounts? They're very popular these days. Yeah. So I contacted David Petzel because I noticed that just due to the volume of plastic coming out, the single 50-15 fan wasn't keeping up. So, so here, this is I'm doing a screen
there on my console, and it can barely keep up at 100.
This is what he came up with here for me. This is two of these are Evercool fans that I sell. They're like 8 CFMs each, and the red stuff is just some RTV to seal any leaks. Because
those 50?
These are 50-15s.
Okay, 50-15s.
So, but I turned them on, and I turned them just at 50%, and the airflow is insane.
Yeah.
So this is just got a cheap like Chinese nozzle on there, and it works. I don't have any issues with it, but it's just kind of like, I was like, okay, I'm going to treat myself to some nice nozzles. Now I have tried a company called P3D or Performance 3D. They're based out of the US, and they do have, they have their Apollo, Hercules, and I think Elite, but they basically have aluminum nozzles that have a nickel type plating. They call it their DuraPlate. And they also have brass and steel coated, and these have been on the market for long before E3D started doing this. But they're plated nozzles. I've bought them before. I have some on my machines, and they're very nice. And just that anti-stick property makes a big difference. And just manually pushing the filament through, you can feel that there's less resistance as it's going through, because it just slides around. It's like Teflon on a coated pan. So like I said, I'm really excited to try these out. I was going to go with the P3D ones, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to give the E3D ones a shot since everybody's talking about them.
Yeah, when I put in the copper block, I had to rerun my PID because it was going all over the places, because it was not used to the heat conductivity of the block being so efficient.
Yeah.
So it was trying to compensate for being overly efficient. And it's really fun because you can see when the heaters are, pulsing when it's going through its PWM. So it's fun because I watched it go from like this to this, which, I mean, that doesn't mean a whole lot in the whole scheme of things, but to a nerd, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, and do you run a sock? Do you insulate your block? Because that's something I recommend everybody do. It's so great just for keeping it clean. And
yeah. I've actually got socks on all my blocks except for the copper one, because it's nickel plated and it's got the logo.
You want to see the pretty logo?
I want to see the logo. I paid for that logo.
I was gonna say, you paid for that logo. You paid a pretty penny for that logo.
Well, we're at the 2-hour mark. So traditionally, we just do an extra here, let everybody know where you can be found. And don't worry, folks, we stay around until things die off. But Martin, yep, okay, had his head in the printer. Martin, you go ahead first.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at a print that is about to fail. I have to watch out for it. Yeah, but I'm Marteinn. I have a channel called 3DP Iceland or 3D Printing Iceland. I do a lot of filament testing on all sorts of projects on my channel, but mostly those landscape prints. I print them out and paint them with acrylic paints. So I have a good fun doing those landscape models and painting. And then I do, yeah, like I said, all kind of projects, filament testing and filament reviews on my channel. So 3DP Iceland, that's me.
Quick question for you before we moved on. Our last show, we talked about multicolor and multi-material printing. Are you give that a try for some of your landscapes?
Yeah, not. I actually have made a pre-order for a new palette, but I don't think I'll use it for the landscape itself because I love mixing acrylics, doing those landscapes. So I'm not sure if a multicolor print would turn out as nice as a paint. But I'll probably try out something.
Who's next there? Ryan, are you still around there? There he is.
Yeah, I'm here. I've been fighting with this console for the past like 30 minutes. I'm Ryan. My channel is Geek Tech. You can find me on pretty much every platform under the same name. Speaking of which, today I posted up the poll for the color selection for the gender reveal that the community during a live stream I did about last week when I let everybody know what was going on. They suggested I do a gender reveal, so I need help picking a red. The
Candy
poll. Apple. What now?
Candy apple.
That's actually the one that's winning right now.
I know. I voted for it.
But yeah, the poll is on my Twitter page. It's up there, so if you want to go over there and vote and kind of be a part of helping choose this, and then once we get to we will be finding out what the gender is in October. I'm not one of those people that just wants to wait. And then as soon as we know, I'm going to do a gender reveal on a live stream for everybody that shows up so that I can kind of share this with everybody. But again, it's Geek Tech. I do lots of different things, 3D printing, making, nerdy things. I'll talk about computers. I'm getting ready to a fairly bigger print that I'm working on is I'm getting ready to start printing out the power armor from Fallout 4. I'm planning on kicking that off next week. And I'm doing the actually internal frame and the external armor as well. I'm going to try to do the whole thing if I can. I've been modeling it up in Fusion 360 from the meshes for a couple of weeks now, which is a fair bit different from me because most of the organic stuff I've done in Blender. But yeah, I mean, stop by, hit subscribe. Make sure you hit the like button on the video for the Friday night group so that it really helped these videos out. And I guess we'll move on to the next person.
Joe Mike, you're up next.
Oh, am I unmuted?
Yes, you're unmuted.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Joe Mike. How are you? So I've got a YouTube channel, Joe Mike Terranella. I have been neglecting the crap out of it because of having to take care of a 1-month-old thing that's frowning at me right now. Quit frowning at me. That's rude. Anyway, I'm on Twitter as Mojike. I'm on Instagram as J Terranella. Right now, I'm absolutely obsessed with multicolor printing. I'm in the process of 3D printing 2 multicolor models. One being Chaos Cortex Optimus Prime in nothing but polyalchemy elixir. It's coming out nicely. And the second thing I'm printing is a full color magnetized Settlers of Catan set, which is pretty BA, if I have to say so. So I'm kind of swapping back and forth between those two. And on that note, I'm actually putting together my rep box from Repcord, so I can start keeping my filament out and about. So, yeah, make sure. What?
I said interesting. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, it's a. Have you not seen the rep box?
I have not. I've apparently missed something revolutionary.
Go to repcord.com. I mean, it's Pooch's baby. Pooch and Travis from Apyro Design. They kind of came up with this. There's the multicolor wave coming with the Palette 2 being released and the MMU 2. And so we need a decent way to keep the filament nice and tidy and feed it to these things instead of having to use crappy spool holders. So they came up with a box that holds the filament and feeds it out through PTFE tubes. And it's really nice. It's an interesting assembly, but yeah, I'm looking forward to using it.
Yeah, I've been playing around with multicolor as well too. So that'd be nice to have. What was the site again?
Repcord.com. So REPKORD.
Okay, I went REPCORD and I took me to some fitness site.
That's definitely not Pooch.
No, it's not it.
Anyway, that's all I've got. So moving on.
I think they're not paying attention.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah,
Yep. No, we're all typing in Repcord there.
yeah.
I am.
Yep. Who's up next? Ricky.
All right. Yeah, my name is Ricky Tanner, Ricky Lee Tanner, for those who follow my music stuff as well. My hobby, of course, is 3D printing, and it came about because I am a toy collector as well, and so I always wanted to design my own toys. That's why I got into 3D printing. So on my channel, I do every Tuesday and Thursday, I do a live stream in the morning where I work on designing stuff in Blender and kind of share that with people so that, you know, they can see my workflow and process and some of the things I design. It's mostly 1/18 scale vehicles for like G.I. Joe, Marvel Universe, that kind of stuff, 4-inch action figures. And this is my latest project. This thing isn't all glued up yet. I still got to reprint the doors because the tolerances weren't quite where I want them to be. But yeah, so I design stuff like this for you know, toy collectors and the like, and hopefully we'll get people out there printing my designs. So you can find me Tanner 3D on YouTube. Tanner_3D on Twitter, because Tanner 3D was already taken by somebody else. I was bummed. And you can find me on Thingiverse, the things that I've shared so far with the public at Tanner Designs on Thingiverse. And yeah, that's about the size of it. Come subscribe and hang out with us on Tuesday and Thursday mornings and learn how to design stuff in Blender.
So I got a question for you.
Okay.
Are you from KC?
I am. I grew up in Belton, Missouri.
Belton. Just stone's throw away from good old Independence.
Class of '95, baby. But you know, I'm a musician for a living in Nashville, and
go where you gotta go.
Yeah, and but I rep KC on stage in Nashville every day.
Good on you. Absolutely.
Always got my Royals or Chiefs hat on.
About to transition from one to the other.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the outfit, really. If the outfit's got more blue, the Royals hat. If it's got more red, Chiefs hat.
Makes sense.
Okay, Timothy.
Well, I'm the one late to the party here, but I'm Tim Hoogland. I run multiple different things. My day job is running a little operation called TH3D Studio. Basically, we sell a lot of stuff for printers, do support. We do a lot of community stuff like all the GPL stuff you guys always have fun hearing about. And we do firmware that's free on our site. So check it out if you got some of the printers we support. And we have a YouTube channel. If you just search TH3D Studio, there's product guides, there's tutorials, there's live streams, printer reviews. We do a lot of stuff here, and I currently have a bunch of machines sitting in my living room that I need to get out of there.
A nice problem to have.
Well, the wife is very patient, luckily. So I don't know too many wives that put up with having 3 large printer boxes sitting in the living room all the time.
Okay, and my name's Richard Murray, and my channel is the Zidim channel. Easiest way to find out what I'm into is head over to the website, zidim.com, Z-I-D-I-M. And my main focus is trying to be on 3D printing for model trains. I'm using the FDM printing as well as the SLA printing. So that's my area. I'm trying to get back onto a regular schedule. We're now done with this short week, so Wednesday I'll be on. I'm trying to find a new permanent time. I found that 10 o'clock Wednesday mornings became an issue with other meetings I have to attend. So I'm looking at either 1 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I haven't settled on that yet, but I'll let you all know when we're there. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. And yes, hit the like buttons. The Friday 3D printing channel, community channel hangout is every week. 1 week it's North American, and the next week it is the EU. And I don't know if Martin can let us into what's coming up for next week's EU show. It's 12 o'clock our time. I don't know what.
I think it's, I jumped on the last one. I think it was 2 p.m. Central time anyways. I'm on Central.
I'm on Pacific. So.
Okay. I'm surprised he's on here.
Yeah. The European hangout is at 9 o'clock GMT 0. So GMT 0, 9 o'clock. No, sorry, 7 o'clock. So
we don't use Greenwich time. We use UTC around here.
Yeah, we use GMT. That's my upbringing, so I'm using that. Yeah, but yeah, we had 2 streams already. One was on my channel, and the second one was here on this channel. And we haven't decided on a subject for next Friday, but it will probably come up soon, and we'll do like an intro video on the channel. So watch out for that one. And I want to point out that now we have this single channel for the stream, and I put all the links to the hosts and co-hosts in the video description, so you can check out our own channels and subscribe to our channels if you find our content interesting. But yeah, I want to encourage you, if you're in the European time zone rather than the US, to join the European stream.
Works out great for us because it's Friday, lunchtime ish or early afternoon. We can tune in and watch what you folks are up to, but we force you to be up at 2, 3 in the morning if you want to join in.
That's what I was going to say. He was saying that he's like, oh, I'm not going to be on the US ones. And when I popped in, I was like, oh, he's up late tonight.
Yeah. It allows me to do it maybe not as often as I did, but it can be quite difficult to be awake all night because the stream starts at 2 a.m. for me, and the stream runs for 3 hours. It gets pretty late, and especially in the winter time when they have the summertime, wintertime change, then it starts at 3 a.m. for me. So that's that's a pain.
But I don't know if he's serious about it, but I hope he is. Repcord, I don't know if he's still around. Mentioned we should do one on impractical prints. And so hopefully we'll get him to host the next North American one in 2 weeks' time.
Isn't that technically everything else?
Well,
I
he
was going to say,
tried-
I'm a toy designer. It's all impractical.
well, he tried. I don't know if you guys follow his Gear Down for What channel, but he tried printing an actual like gear for a differential. Like that was crazy. I was like, this guy's insane, but I love it.
Well, who was it that has the life-size print of the VFG?
I have no idea, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah, that's
It's
Mike, the
it's,
Midnight Giant.
Yeah, Midnight Giant.
He
Oh,
was
Midnight-
in the chat before.
Oh,
Midnight
the
Giant.
Gone. Okay, I got you.
Midnight Ninja, you said?
Midnight Giant.
Giant.
Oh, okay. I was like, Midnight Ninja, I recognize the name because he hangs out in our Discord all the time. Yeah, TH3 has his Discord if you guys were looking for somebody.
But yeah, I forget how many pounds that thing's weighed, but there's a lot of plastic in there. So I think that would completely qualify as a impractical print.
Yeah, but when is a prop for a cosplay item practical versus just not practical? If it's practical in a cosplay scene of things, it's like a sword is a practical thing. If
If someone's coming through the door and it's sharp, then it's immediately practical.
yeah.
Samurai home defense.
Yeah, exactly. What sort of feedback you folks getting about these printed guns? I get asked about it constantly now.
I just tell them they're cool to look at and it's a neat part of history, but don't try to shoot them because they're going to blow up. They're not practical. That's an impractical print right there.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
going to print one just to have it like shown, be like, this is cool. Like, but I would never shoot it. And if I did, it would be in the middle of nowhere, probably go up to Wisconsin where my wife's parents live. They've lots of property and just use a really long like cord, and like a string or something to pull it so if it blows up, I'm not near it.
Well, that's what Matt did with his. He took it down to the firing range and set it up for a remote fire because he wasn't going anywhere near it.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust it. Like I said, it's cool. It's a cool idea. It's a neat, like we're doing it. Like I'm in the, where most of us are in the US, I assume, except for Marteinn. And
I'm Canadian.
Oh, I actually couldn't tell, which is surprising. You don't sound very Canadian.
No air.
No, I always watch Richards from the First Layer. If you guys follow him, and he always says a boot, and I'm like, ha. It's like he's Canadian.
Oh, yeah.
They say it up north in Wisconsin though, which is why I call it Southern Canada or Little Canada. And way up north in Wisconsin, they have that same accent.
Well, I showed up on one site as a potato farmer because I live just 10 kilometers north of Idaho. So somehow I have a U.S. Post Office box, so they just pulled Idaho off of that and gave me the potato designation.
That's great.
But, no, I find it interesting that at the border they have a big barrel there for the Americans to dump their ammo in when they're coming into Canada.
Oh, I did not know that. That's funny.
And a sign on there, do not fire into barrel.
Have you seen the new Super Troopers movie?
I have not seen a movie in several years.
Oh, wow. It's funny because they're basically taking over a part of what was supposed to be Canada, but apparently the boundary lines are off, so they're annexing it for the U.S. It's just all sorts of hilarious. So if you guys haven't seen it, you should check it out.
I'll have to check it out. No, it was a lot of fun dealing with folks down in Mississippi. It was a tough time for them. It was after Katrina. But I was down there for 6 weeks in Gulfport. And when I left, I mentioned in the Emergency Operations Center down there that definitely time for me to leave because I'm starting to put y'all into every other sentence.
What's wrong with that?
Joe, do you have problems with y'all's coming out?
Oh yeah, we're right in the middle of the map, so we get a mix of it all. We get y'all, we get fixing to and fitting to. We get The one that my wife brought up from Texas with her was might could.
What does that mean?
Oh, we might could do that.
We might could do that? What? I've never heard that.
I'm used to saying, well, we maybe could, but they say might could down in Texas. And when the first time that came out of her mouth, I just was like, huh. And then I realized her parents say it just as much as she does. And I'm like, well, I could get used to this.
And the phrase "I tell you what" is a complete thought in Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
And bless her heart.
Yep. Well, you get that in southern Missouri too.
You get that.
You say bless her heart before you say something really horrible about somebody.
That's
and then it's not supposed to mean anything that you just said something horrible about them.
Makes it all okay.
Yeah.
I forget what state I was in, but it was at a hardware store, and at the checkout, it was, you want that in a sock? I had to scratch my head. What is she talking about here? Oh, put it in a bag. Yes, I understand that now. Okay.
Well, and it's funny because Missouri is one of those states where from one side of the state to the other, the language changes dramatically. Because I lived in St. Louis for like 12 years before I moved down here to Tennessee. And I grew up, this was pop. Pop. You move to St. Louis, it's soda.
It's. I mean, I always call it soda.
And
Or maybe I use both. You know, every time this comes up, I can't remember. Like, it's like, and maybe I say pop. I'm like trying to think. I'm like, hey, can you go give me a pop? No, or soda? I don't know. I am conflicted now.
Yeah, in St. Louis, if you say pop when you're referring to this, they'll look at you like you're growing a second head.
I've got a good amount of friends who say soda pop, the whole thing, and then another group who say Coke for any carbonated.
That's the South. Yeah, in the South.
I've never heard people call like Coke.
Well, our pop comes in a soda can.
Well, see, I
Pop can.
I grew up in Georgia, and every soda is Coke.
Yeah. What flavor of Coke do you want?
What flavor of Coke do you want? I want
Clear
spring flavored Coke.
Can I get the root beer Coke?
Right. That's the South.
So you get the Pepsi Coke.
That's when you're not drinking the sweet tea.
Well, yeah.
I love some sweet tea.
Tea by default is sweet.
Yes.
The South.
Oh yeah.
got
Southern
the
sweet
app.
tea is amazing.
Yes.
Oh.
And I'm a
but
sweet teaholic, so moving to Tennessee was perfect for me.
Oh.
That's because in the South, when we run out of syrup for our pancakes, we can go right to the tea.
Well, if you're in Canada, you never run out of syrup. You just go outside and tap the tree, and you're good.
You got to be in the right part of Canada. You don't do that in this part.
Is a Mountie coming by going, what you doing, eh? You own that there tree there? You best not be doing that, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have a nice day there.
Apparently, my guys behind me, they're losing it. They're like, I'm like, what's so funny? He's like, your syrup comment. They're dying.
Well, our local RCMP detachment, when they're shutting down crops, there's a lot of grow ops around here. Something will probably be going out of business soon as we've legalized things. But anyways, they had a bunch of plants. They had them in an outdoor compound. And then one day someone came by and looked in their little flower bed at the front of the detachment. And they go, you know what's growing in there? The seeds have blown over and they're growing them their own. They have their nice little grow up just for the detachment.
You know, a practical print, you can totally 3D print, a water pipe for that.
Well, 3D Printing Canada, I think, is the Facebook group. There's one guy that's been on there who's been doing a lot of prep for legalization day.
Ah.
Isn't that October?
Hang on, I'll be right back. Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know the date, but
Sorry, I was posting a link in the chat for a very funny guy. He's doing all kind of projects on his YouTube channel, but if you want to listen to a very funny dialogue, check that channel out. It's hilarious.
I don't know how the guys made out the fellow, but yeah, once again, when I was in Gulfport, at the desk behind me, I had National Guard, Army, Air Force, Navy, so on and so forth. Also brass. But the major from the National Guard actually came from Newfoundland. And he had a fairly solid Newfoundland accent. I could make him out, but I don't know how his other officers there could make out what he was saying.
What did I miss? Sorry, I was checking a print. I remembered I remounted my probe when I put that big cooler on there, and I was like, I don't know if I need to change my offset.
But no, all the fun accents, trying to figure out what people are saying. My number one takeaway from being down there was, if you want something done, get to know the sheriff.
It's not so. I kind of wish I grew up in, like, I'm in the suburbs of Chicago, and the town I grew up in was a smaller town, but not like a small town like my wife grew up in, where, you know, everybody kind of knows everybody. It'd be kind of cool to get that experience. That's what would be applicable in towns that size. You know, getting to know the local sheriff. You know, in case you end up in any trouble.
Well, there's the sheriff. The other powerhouse is the secretary to the mayor, because she normally knows everyone and can tell you how to get stuff done.
Well, I'm going to
keep one thing I had to get onto and council agenda. I told her what I needed, and she says, "You just move to the top of the agenda. Meet over here."
Got to know people. You always got to have a guy.
Yeah,
or a girl.
Yeah, you got to know people. Well, Brenna, who her channel is Superior Jello, and she's the reason we got into 3D printing in the first place. But she works in the film industry, and that's all about who do you know. You know, what projects are coming up. Well, this one's going to need this production assistant, and then he can go and talk to those folks, the art directors, what have you. But I mean, networking is major for that.
I think networking in general is just good, because I got, you know, when I was in IT, I got, you know, introduced to all the companies I worked for through, you know, friends of friends, or, you know, someone knew somebody and they're like, oh, well, they're looking for someone. Let them give me a resume. And, you know, it's common through a lot of things I've noticed. It's almost more important than your qualifications sometimes, you know, if you know somebody.
Well, being in the music business, contacts are everything.
Yeah.
It's more about who you know than it is talent, any of that. Well, and do the people you know have money? And are they willing to spend it on you? Yeah. Actually,
my daughter's best friend in school, her dad is Luther, makes guitars. And chatting with him, he goes, you know, I try to make my living off of starving musicians. But his stuff, yeah, his guitars, I think, start at the $20,000 range. So,
woo!
But and he's got a good lineup of work.
Wow. I mean, here's the thing. If you're good at what you do, you will always have work. Like my father, he runs like his own remodeling business, and he has to turn work away because, and he's never advertised. It's all word of mouth. And, you know, like myself, he, you know, took the leap to see if he could make it on his own. And, you know, my mother was the one who told him, well, just do it. You've been hemming and hawing for, you know, 20 years about going into business for yourself. Just do it. You know, we were all moved out, and, you know, it was just them. He did it, and now he's got work coming out of his ears. And I occasionally help him. He's starting now to realize that as people do remodeling, like, you know, they do living rooms and stuff, they'll also ask him, like, hey, can you hang and hook up my TV? So I get those calls. Yeah, they've got like 4 different devices, but they only want one remote. How do I do this? And I'm like, I got you.
Well, that's one of the things to consider with a lot of people getting into 3D printing. One of the goals is, you know, how can I make money at this? Can I make it my full-time job? And you understand what sort of hassles you have to go through for that.
Yeah. I mean, like right now I've got one of our main machines down. Luckily I've got It was our only machine that did ABS, but it's down. Luckily, I got 2 others, so we're able to keep up. But I don't even have time right now to pull the machine off the rack and start disassembling because I don't know if it's the control board going out or the wiring going to the hot end is having issues because my temperature readings are going from, 230 to 280, and I know it's not doing that fast. So, but it ran great for a year and a half. This is the first time I had to do any, real maintenance on it outside of your basic checks. So I can't really give it too much of a hard time. I got a lot of reliable service out of it.
Yeah, but it is a big leap, trying to make your career off of this stuff.
I actually, if anybody cares to hear any details about the company and where we're at, I made a very lengthy post about the history of it. I still work a ton. I'm going to get off here and probably be up till for another 3 or 4 hours. It's already 11 p.m. here. And it's just a lot, but it's stressful, but it's a different kind of stress. And it's not for everybody, like my brother, he's a very smart guy. And, I think if he wanted to, he could go into business for himself, but he's more of the type that he'd rather work for somebody. So he's basically like, well, once I'm done with school, if you guys need help and want to hire me, I'll come work for you. But, I've tried to push him into the entrepreneurial life. And I do think it takes a certain type of person to do it. And you got to have that personality and drive. And it's exhausting. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but it's a lot of work. It's not just, people are like, oh, you work for yourself, you can just take time off whenever you want. Well, I don't like taking time off because I come back to a huge backlog of everything and unhappy people. So, there's pros and cons to everything. So it's, you got to do what works for you. And I recommend if you think you can do it and you're in a position where you can, you should try it because the reason I took this leave was because my wife pushed me to do it. She said, we're fine. She had a full-time job at the time. She's like, we can live off my salary if we need to, but, she's like, just do it. I think it'll work. And, it was scary and it still kind of is scary, just the amount of stuff I do on a daily basis just to keep things running, the amount of things we have to keep tabs on. There's a lot of behind the scenes that people don't see. And I kind of detail a lot of that on the post I made about our 1 year, like where we're at, like we've grown a lot and I'm very thankful for it and the community and the support we've gotten so far. And like I said, it's very stressful, but it's a different kind of stress because I know at the end of the day, I'm building something that, is going to better myself and, my family versus working on somebody else's dream. As cheesy as that sounds, that's kind of that's how I look at it. So, and I didn't want to look back at my life 20 years from now and think, man, that 3D printing thing, I wonder if it could have actually gone somewhere. I wonder if I could have made a difference. So now I don't have to wonder. If it fails, it fails. I'll go back into the IT world. But if it succeeds, then, it succeeds. But I'm trying my best here and, taking it day by day.
Tim, the cool part about your story is I find that everybody who is successful in a crazy venture, as it were, they have a supportive spouse behind them. My story was very similar in the fact that I was a lead PHP developer for a company in St. Louis when I showed up to work July 15th, 2009. There were a bunch of boxes stacked up outside the back door. I parked my car and started walking towards the building. My boss popped out the back door and proceeded to tell me the boxes was my stuff, that they had outsourced my job to a company in India. My whole department was gone. So I loaded up my vehicle and I called my wife and I said, told her what happened. I said, what are we going to do? And she said, well, you've always wanted to make music your living. You'll get unemployment. You've got until the unemployment runs out to make music, make ends meet. And I've never worked a real job again in my life.
Yeah, I mean, that's the scary part too. It's funny because like I said, we're trying to get a house because our operation is in a 1,500 square foot condo. And I'd say about 500, maybe even 600 square feet of that is taken over by the business. Like our packaging area is what would be our dining room. We have her desk. We have 2 big desk setups. all the racks of all the inventory. We keep our bulk boxes in inventory downstairs in our garage. It's crazy how much we've made this work. But you know, one of the things is when we were looking for houses, you know, they're looking at our, you know, our income now. It's like, well, you guys just started a business, and even though it's doing well, you know, we can't really give you a loan even for, you know, like a modest house of like, you know, 300,000 around here is, you know, a decent sized house in this area, or even, you know, Indiana, which we're probably going to go to either Indiana or Wisconsin because taxes in Illinois are insane. But it's just crazy because if she kept her job, she could, you know, we could have had her keep it until we got all the mortgage stuff done, and then she could have quit. And it's like, why, you know, that, or she could have gotten fired even. You know, it doesn't make sense, some of this stuff. It kind of feels like, you know, things are stacked against you if you don't have a normal job. But I guess it's just more motivation to keep at it, you know, and push through these challenges. Just another obstacle, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
that's something that's happening in this province is they're trying to change the mortgage rules to make it easier for those with abnormal incomes, you know, self-employed individuals, make it easier for them to actually get a mortgage.
Yeah, a bank wouldn't loan me $5 if I gave them 20 first.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's weird. I mean, the sad part is we may end up having to just save up until we can buy a house outright, or at least pay for most of it. You know, luckily the condo, I own it, so we have that, you know, in our favor. But you know, it's kind of a catch-22 because we need more space to expand the business, and the plan is to get a house with definitely a full-size basement that we can operate out of, and preferably something with enough extra land where we can put up like a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot outbuilding and run the business out of there, so we have a dedicated shop for it. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but if you run 3D printers unattended in a office space and they catch fire, insurance does not cover that. So we have to keep our print farm on premises or pay someone to be there overnight to watch them, regardless if we have, you know, video monitoring on the machines. So that's something to keep in mind too, especially with these very cheap Chinese ones. That's why I replace all my power supplies in the cheaper ones with the Meanwell brands, because I've had too many go up in smoke, and you know, the outcome could have been worse if I wasn't home. So my paranoia just makes me replace them right off the bat when I get a new machine that's going to be running heavily.
Would it be easier for your business to get a loan than you?
I'm not sure, because we're like I said, we're just past that like 1 year mark, and they want to see a couple years of, you know, either, you know, stability and, you know, a decent amount of stability, or growth that's consistent. And we are growing, which is why we have, you know, it's crazy to think that we have, like, including myself, we have 4 full-time people working, you know, on this. And then like my buddy Matt, who is right here, he comes in, he has a day job, but he'll come over at 8 o'clock and be here till like 2 a.m. working with me. He's flashing SD cards for the Octoprint kits that we sell. You know, Tyler is here late because he's been out for the last 3 weeks because he had his tonsils removed. So we're kind of playing catch up. And I can tell you, having one guy out running a small business throws a wrench in everything. My whole last 3 weeks have been trying to keep everything, you know, stay together and running, you know, and do 2 jobs essentially. And then we did have extra help come in that are, you know, friends of ours and other people. Like we just had a guy come in that was a son of one of the scout leaders that I used to do scouts with. I was a Boy Scout, I'm an Eagle Scout. And he's been helping us, but just managing all those people and making sure they have things to do and that things are getting done right. It's a lot of work. I understand why companies have managers now, because that's kind of what I've been doing the last few weeks. And it, you know, I need to, you know, to grow this company, I need to take away from, you know, the mundane day-to-day stuff that just grinds away your time, so I can focus on development and, you know, coming up with new things. So, and then obviously, like I said, the space, we need more space to grow.
What's the mana pool? Huh?
Yeah, I find the 3D printing, I'm just doing my own thing here, but it takes over the spaces that you have and keeps on growing.
Yeah, it does. And it's like I keep getting I get a lot. So I bought the CR20 and the CRX before they actually just released all their source code, which is great, because I have people asking me, hey, I got this printer. I understand the whole GPL thing, but if you guys could get one in and start putting out firmware for it and stuff, that we'd appreciate it. So I was like, fine, I'll get one. I'm not going to put it on the channel though until they get all this source code stuff sorted out. And then they released it, so I was like, okay, well that's good. I don't feel bad that we just spent $1,100 on printers that we don't need. We're full, so I don't know if I'm going to rotate out one of the older machines and give them to somebody, or if I'm just going to do the work on these and then turn around and sell them. Haven't decided what I'm going to do yet because I've kind of grown attached to certain printers in here. It's certain ones I can be yeah, I can get rid of those, but a couple of them, it's just I've just got so much time into this one and it prints so nice. I just don't want to get rid of it. Yeah, they quickly take over. This entire room is filled with machines, and it's not even all of them.
Yeah, talking about space for 3D printing. Here's a desk I have, and here in the background are my printers, and this is my living room. So, so my YouTube studio and printing area is just part of the living room. So,
yeah, this is just our second bedroom.
Yeah, luckily I have an excellent wife that puts up this, and she's just happy that I'm doing something in the house. Had several hobbies where I'm out and about and not in the building, so she's quite happy to have me in the house. Taking over the dining room area.
I think sometimes they like it because gets us out of their hair. It's go play with your printers.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife only lets me play with my printers when she's not home.
Is she here? I saw you look around. Blink
no,
once.
She actually her and my son. The whole reason I'm getting to take part in this weekend, they go back to St. Louis to help take care of my father-in-law once a month and 1 weekend a month. And so this is the weekend that they took off to go do that. She goes and helps him pay all of his bills and stuff, because ever since my mother-in-law passed away, she used to sit and write all the checks every month and make sure they got sent out. So now that duty is falling on my wife. My father-in-law provides the money and she writes the checks and sends them where they need to go.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar because that happened with my grandpa, and then he got remarried. So,
and Bonnie, that's my father-in-law. He's very old school. We keep trying to get him to relinquish the whole having to write a check thing. It's you can set up a direct debit to your account. If there's plenty of money in there, they'll just take it out every month. And he's like, no, I want to know exactly where my money went, how much went where, and he wants that little check log and all that. So no, he won't hear of it.
We got my grandmother to use a tablet, and she's got a Facebook account now. So we're making progress.
Yeah, my father-in-law, we bought him an iPhone. He still uses his flip phone, track phone. The only thing he uses the iPhone for is he watches the Find My Friends app to see where we're all at.
Oh, Marteinn's got his kitty.
Oh.
Yeah. he always wants.
I'll see your kitty and I'll raise you a hypoallergenic dog.
Yeah, I have to
we have 3 cats right now. We had 4, but we had to take the other one back because he was very territorial and was attacking our other cats. And, tried for a couple months, and sadly it didn't work out. So, yeah, we luckily he's at a no-kill shelter, and we made a large donation to cover all his costs. So he'll go to a good home. He's marked as only cat, because he just like, our cats are super laid back, super timid, and he was just attacking them out of nowhere and marking everywhere. And I was like, yeah, we tried for 2 months. We got to take it back.
There's my cat.
Oh,
He's curled up. I make a space for him above the monitors. And so he's quite happy there. The other cat's up in the bedroom. He's sound asleep.
oh. Cats love baskets.
Yeah. And actually, both of these cats are cats from rescues, cat rescues.
Yeah, all of ours are.
Yeah. And Gus here, he was in the rescue for 2.5 years. And the other cat, Sweetie, she's in a rescue for 4 years. So,
yeah, ours. We've got 3. I adopted 2 when I bought my condo back in 2012. And they were a pair, and I got the 3rd one, and he was a litter of kittens that was found under a barn. And one of our friends does like a dog rescue, and so somehow she ended up with these kittens. And my wife and I were dating at the time, and she had never had a kitten. So I wanted a 3rd cat, and I always wanted an orange tabby, and she had this orange tabby, and he's super sweet. And I brought him home in an Amazon box, and she almost cried when I opened the box because he was just so damn cute. And he ended up being my cat, but that's okay because my one cat loves her more than me now. So we kind of traded.
there we go.
Huh?
Little person.
Little person is about to lose her mind.
It's a mini Joe.
It's a female, so I hope not. Hey. You ready to go eat? Let's go wake up Mama. We'll be right back.
Okay. Actually, the one thing I have with the cats, Sweetie hasn't figured it out yet, but Gus loves the heated print bed. And
I was just going to ask about that because mine have tried, but then I moved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey.
Yeah.
This is a pro sprayer. This is like I can shoot across the room, but I don't use it too much in here because of all the electronics.
Cat doesn't sit there, but everything's shorted out.
Right. I do have though. Like someone sent me like this Chinese flashlight that also has a really crappy taser in it. So I just make the noise and they scatter. So it's like I don't even have to use the water. I just make the, you hit the button, it goes, and they're just like, oh, I'm out of here. And it's like, okay, well then I don't have water everywhere. But if I have this spray bottle anywhere, they will not go near it. So
yeah. Now that's an issue. Actually, my first print on the MK3, the problem I had with it was it was an old roll, and it was near the end, and so the last 2 rolls on it were on top, so it was a twisted roll. I don't know how it got in that condition, but I had to pull that through by hand. When I went into the next print, I put on a fresh roll of the Prusa Silver, and as soon as I did that, it popped off the roll. I didn't have the nylon cover on or anything. Don't have any of that here. So I had the spaghetti ball of filament that I was trying to rewrap onto the roll. And Gus thought I was giving him the best present ever. All this filament bouncing around everywhere. He really wanted into that.
Diesel, he doesn't like my office because of especially when the printers are running, he doesn't like the noise. But if I leave the door open, let's say, like when you change your roll and you got like a cutoff that's like this from the Bowden tube, he comes in, he sees, if he looks around, as soon as he sees one, he bolts in, grabs it, and runs out of the room. And then my wife's like, why is there filament in the bedroom or on the bed? And I was like, because the cat took it. He also steals my little skirts and brims that I pull off, and he'll run with them. And if he see him taking them, he bolts.
Yeah, actually, all my skirts and that, they have to be into a bin with a cover, because both cats will go and take anything that might be a potential toy and they run off with it. And of course, they try to chew on it and eat it. And don't want that in their guts. So yeah, it has to be covered.
He doesn't eat it, luckily. He literally just takes it and he goes crazy. He throws it like you. First time I saw him playing with it, I'm just sitting there on the couch and I see him playing with something. I just see filament going straight up in the air, and then he's losing his mind and falling over trying to get it. I was like, well, at least he's not eating it. I've never found pieces of it missing. He just literally takes it and plays with it. But we have, like, when we're packaging our products, we use like poly bags with self-adhesive strips. Our other cats, Archer and Cyril, will try to eat the plastic strips, and it's if they see them, like, they've learned to tip over the trash can, so we had to get a taller, like, commercial trash can for by our packaging area, because otherwise they figured out to knock it over and they eat them, and luckily they just pass through them. I know when I'm taking their litter box bags out, but it's just like, come on, if they have one and they see you, they try to swallow it as fast as they can. So I'm like, it's a race to get to the cat and grab him, you know, and be like, you know, give me that. So they're weird animals, but I would I can't imagine my life without them.
Yeah. And the dogs I've had, neither of them been interested in the 3D printing.
Well, that's good.
They hear the sound, but yeah, oh, I can't eat that. Not for me, and walks away.
Yeah, they're good for the most part. I mean, luckily we don't have any of our cats that mess with cords or anything. I see Hawk 3D Proto is asking, Ender 3 or TiVo Flash? TiVo Flash, if you don't mind spending extra money, in my opinion. I have a Flash here. They're pretty nice. They did a good job on it.
Well,
that's just my 2 cents.
We're about to hit the 3-hour mark, and I'm starting to fade here.
Yeah, I need to get back to work here. I got to clear this off and get my i3 Plus here so I can finish the firmware on there.
Well, so once again, thanks for everyone for hanging out with us. We're in Europe next week, and in 2 weeks we'll be back with the North American stream. Check us out on the Facebook pages, F3DPCH -public. And that will give you whatever information we have on who's coming up. And if you have an idea for a topic, pop over to Facebook and toss it out there as something you'd like to hear us talk about.
Well, it was a pleasure chatting with you guys as always. I love hanging out with a bunch of other printing nerds. Not too many people I get to talk shop with. Matt and I hang out in addition to him helping me, but I don't really have too many local nerds to chat with.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Anyways, you guys all have a good night. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. We hope you had some good times here and learned a few things and didn't mind our ramblings.
Yeah, thank you for letting me join. This is the first time I've gotten to participate, and so it was awesome, and hope to get to do it again in the near future.
Well, I'm looking forward, since you're just getting started out, your stuff's looking great. I'm looking forward to see.
Yeah, I was going to say, that print of that truck, I was like, man, this guy's got his stuff dialed in. So, whatever you're doing, you're doing it.
This week, I unboxed this secondhand CR10 S4 that I got from Robbie Mac, and it's running your firmware and has your build surface on it.
Oh, is that? I thought that color looked familiar. That name sounds familiar.
When you were talking about your company, I took my camera over there and was hovering it over the build.
I seriously, not to toot my own horn, but I literally, that's all I print on now. Like, I literally threw out all of my glass last night because it's been sitting in a pile.
It's got a little tear in it, so I'll have to get another one from you at some point. That, and I'm interested in the Easy ABL for it, since leveling a 400 by 400 bed can be painful.
Oh, it's a pain. I have it on my. I got the AlphaWise U10. I had an S4, but I actually traded it. The power supply blew out in it, and I traded it for my broken S4 for a broken i3 Plus because I needed the i3 Plus for doing work on. And I was like, well, I have no use for 2 giant printers. So I opted to keep the AlphaWise. The AlphaWise, the Sierra S4 is nice, but the U10 was a little more flexible.
The S4 is what printed that, and you can see the print quality came out fantastic. So yeah, it's running your firmware, because your logo comes up when I switch on the machine, and and it's got your build surface on it. But I'll be in touch here probably in the near future about an easy ABL kit and a replacement build surface because that was.
I see a Tiny Machines box down there too.
Yes.
Chris
Yes,
is good people. I'll plug him. He's really good people. If you guys want a Creality printer, they're awesome.
So that's where it originated was from Tiny Machines, and then Robbie Mack I think got it secondhand from somebody else. And
I know who that is. I know who Robbie Mack is. He's a cool guy. He had a few of them. So
he's an amazing guy. He had 2 of them, and he was at a point where he was like, I never used this one, and he's like, I know you need a larger format printer for your designs, and so he very, very graciously donated it to the cause.
Oh wow!
All I had to do was pay him for shipping, and he sent it to me.
You have I know you have your YouTube channel, but we can chat after we take this off live here. So
sure.
So just hang around.
Okay, cool.
Okay, have a good night, all.
Everybody take